This is Newsroom. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg here in South Africa. My name, of course, Evan Jensen. This show, as always, is live and broadcast from our studios right here in Auckland Park between 9 and 12 every weekday morning. We're also live on YouTube. You can watch us via the streaming facilities there now. Today we focus on a recent landmark ruling by the High Court to suspend the 5-kilometre radius admission system. The Gauteng Education Department will now have a final say over government school admissions processes to ensure all schools for all children in the province. Now, our question today deals with it. It asks of you, should schools be open to all nationwide now, irrespective of where you live? Of course, at SABC Newsroom is where you can send us your contribution. We'll run it live throughout the show today. It's Monday morning, very busy news weekend and News Monday ahead of us. Let's go to Elvis to give us the first news update.
The ANC in Gauteng expresses confidence of filling the FNB Stadium for its provincial election manifesto launch this coming weekend. The South African Communist Party praises the public broadcaster, the SABC, for banning visuals showing violent protest. And sentencing will take place in the Zephany nurse kidnapping case this morning. That's all coming up, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front. A very good morning to you, Kendall.
Elvis, a good morning to you, and Evan, welcome back. It's really good to be here with everybody, as well as a big welcome back to everybody at home as well on this beautiful Monday morning. This is what we've got for you in the sports.
This is it, the final few metres. He's running under our noses at Sahara Stadium, Kingsmead. David Khatebe, South African, smashes the Comrades record of 5:18.
David Khatebe wins his first Comrades Marathon, shattering a 9-year-old record for the down race by 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And the University of Pretoria start their desperate campaign to stay in the Premier Soccer League on the back foot as they lose 1-0 at home to Mbombela United.
He survived everything that's been thrown at him here today. And Lewis Hamilton takes his first win of 2016. Hamilton wins in Monaco for his 44th career victory.
Defending champion Lewis Hamilton secures his first win of the 2016 Formula One season in a dramatic, crash-filled Monaco Grand Prix.
Has to settle for second place after a hard-driven event. And Sergio Perez takes a brilliant third for...
Now, all this and more we've got for you at about 10:20 or so. But for now, back to the main desk for the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this morning. The African National Congress in Gauteng says it's on track to fill up the 94,000-seater FNB Stadium on Saturday. The party will launch its provincial manifesto at what it promises will be the ANC's biggest rally this year.
This Saturday, all roads lead to FNB Stadium. Well, that's according to the ANC in Gauteng, which wants to fill up the biggest stadium in the country.
We have concluded our list processes, which often divide a lot of our members. Now we are focusing on the campaign, and you will see the first message we are sending, FNB Stadium will be full.
Yes. It's a mammoth task these volunteers are entrusted with, but the door-to-door mobilization hasn't been a walk in the park.
Where we have made mistakes, we ourselves would like to work with the people of our province and our cities here in the province to fix those problems.
With opposition parties eyeing the city of Tshwane, the ANC in Gauteng says on August the 3rd it will retain all municipalities in the province and win back Midvaal. Aldrin Simpier, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The South African Communist Party has praised the SABC's decision to ban visuals showing destructive service delivery protests. The party's provincial general secretary, made the comments on the sidelines of the launch of its election program to support the African National Congress.
Rallying the Communist Party faithful to back the African National Congress in the local government elections. The recent announcement by the SABC that it would not show destruction during protests drew praise from the party.
I'm very much pleased that The SABC already has taken a stand that it will not, cover protests where destruction of property is involved. Now, I've heard people saying this amount to censorship, it amounts to, tampering with freedom of expression. I've noted and heard all of those. I will not enter into whether they are right or wrong, onto merits or demerits of that. What I commend the SABC for is they've taken a stand against destruction of public property.
And a swipe against those using the Nkandla saga to criticize the ANC.
There was something there called collusion on price. So what happened in Nkandla, whilst we tend to look at it in isolation, we can't resolve the problems that manifested themselves in Nkandla outside dealing with the entire practice of manipulating costs, manipulating scope in construction project management.
While the SACP leadership here has been resolute in its call for members to support the ANC in the upcoming local government elections, leaders have been quick to admit that Gauteng remains a problem province. The SACP says it is already deploying party members to canvass support for the ANC. Dumalo Mohlaudi, SABC News, Boksburg.
The Western Cape Premier, Helen Zille, was in Pretoria this weekend to support the DA mayoral candidate for the Tshwane Metro, Solim Simanga, in the upcoming local government elections. The Democratic Alliance, which has the Cape Town Metro under its wing, is targeting Tshwane, Johannesburg and the Nelson Mandela Metros. The township vote is crucial for its success.
A door-to-door campaign to garner that all-important vote. The DA says communities can stay as they are for life or vote for change. It says every city can be as clean as Cape Town.
Local government is about clean running water. Local government is about proper sewerage. Local government is about roads and electricity and decent community safety, all of those things. And if you come to a place like Itireleng, you see what failed local government looks like.
The party's mayoral candidate says given the chance, he'll give meaning to the words for Itireleng residents.
This is one of the townships that year in, year out, you hear the mayor talking about coming to fix this area here, but you have seen for yourself the kind of condition that we find here.
The DA believes both Tshwane and the Nelson Mandela Metros are within its grasp.
Meanwhile, EFF leader Julius Malema says he wants to rid all municipalities in the country of corruption. Now, this was his message to the EFF supporters in Pietermaritzburg and Durban, where he wrapped up his three-day election manifesto campaign in KwaZulu-Natal.
Malema received a warm welcome. The party will be contesting the local government election for the first time, and it hoped to build on the inroads it made in KZN during the 2014 national elections. In his address, Malema said the EFF won't tolerate corruption and nepotism. He urged the electorate to vote for the EFF, as he wants to change the political landscape in all municipalities.
You have no dignity without a flushing toilet. The reason we are crying for a flushing toilet is because we want to restore your dignity. You cannot build a house after 1994 without a flushing toilet.
He also urged candidates for the local government election to humble themselves and serve the citizen of the country.
We don't want to give you food passes. We want to give you a job so that you can buy your own food and the food of your choice.
Malema's last stop was at Umlazi. He called on the community in the area to vote for his party. Londi Khatebe, SABC News, Durban.
Sentencing proceedings in the Zephany nurse kidnapping case gets underway in the Western Cape High Court this morning. A 51-year-old Lavender Hill woman has been found guilty of kidnapping, fraud and contravening the Children's Act. Zephany was kidnapped from Groote Schuur Hospital 19 years ago when she was a mere 3 days old. Now, she's expected to testify for the state in aggravation of sentence.
It's a case that has drawn international attention. A baby snatched at birth from hospital and reunited with her biological parents after 17 years. Zephanie was raised in Lavender Hill, a stone's throw away from where her biological parents lived. Last year, the nurse's younger daughter started school at the same institution where Zephanie was doing matric. Their striking resemblance, the first clues that led to a drama-filled trial. Western Cape Judge President John Hlophe found that she had deceived everyone, including her husband, for almost 18 years. Shortly before her conviction, the woman told SABC News she regrets not telling the truth sooner.
I'm very happy that load is also off my shoulders because it was hindering me for years. Who's a mom, who's a dad. And at this moment, I'm very happy she found him. But it's just the pity she have to find out that we lost here. It should have come from me.
Her husband has pledged to continue supporting his wife.
I am standing with her all the way through this, and I will always be there for her. Whatever the outcome may be, I will be there for her and my daughter.
A court order prevents the media from identifying Zephanie. The teenager will now testify for the state during sentencing procedures. The convicted kidnapper is currently behind bars. Berenice Moss, SABC News, Cape Town.
Now, we'll get you the latest and an update on that story as it unfolds here on Newsroom a little bit later in the program, so you have to stay tuned. But right now, remember, this week, or today actually, we focus on a number of issues, and one of them is last week the Constitutional Court ruled in favor of the Gauteng Education Department, which will now have the final say over government schools admission processes to ensure access to schools for all children in the province. So the question that we pose to you right now on your screen, should schools, and I'm talking all schools, be open to all children nationwide, irrespective of where you live? Because that was one of the key issues. That's the question. Let us know on the Facebook page as well as on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. By the way, if you like us on Facebook, you become part and parcel of the informed. It's over to Eben.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jarvis. Very good morning if you've just joined us. Of course, landmark ruling last week. The Constitutional Court ruled in favor of the Gauteng Education Department in the school's admissions policy regulations case. This means the department will now have the final say of government schools' admissions processes. The Federation of Schools Governing Bodies challenged the current regulations, arguing that it is removing power away from the schools, which should be able to set their own policies. Now, Gauteng Education Department's Mr. Panyaza Lesufi says the ruling is a victory for all pupils in the province. The Gauteng MEC is with us in studio this morning to give us his reaction after this landmark ruling. Mr. Lesufi, I thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Thank you so much, Evan. Good morning.
It was indeed a landmark case. It will change the landscape, I think, for many learners in South Africa. But let's go back to the case. Your reaction to the ruling before we get into the discussion.
No, you're quite right. It just allows our facilities to be available to all our learners, but at the same time, it breaks the backbone of apartheid planning. You know, you can't separate geographic areas from benefits because of the Group Areas Act. You know, good schools were at areas where they were highly advanced, whereas some of our schools were in areas where they were less developed. So this resolution or this court case gave us an opportunity to balance the landscape and ensure that those parents that can afford to take their children to any particular school, they must not be hindered or be asked where they come from, whether they can afford or they can't afford. So it's a very important case, and I really believe that the stakeholders within the education system will manage it appropriately.
Would you say that this, you mentioned apartheid spatial planning, but it has a sense of the last bastion, if one can call it that we've seen within schools, this being used to exclude not just those living around, but we've got other instances where this policy has been used to exclude.
Well, unfortunately, you know, and that's the most painful part, is that on top of the rules and regulations that we had, some of the schools created their own rules. One, they will request parents to produce the pay slip or salary advices, which simply means that if you can't afford that school fees, your child cannot get access to quality education. So it means our education system will only be available to the privileged few. Secondly, they will ask something that is called confidential reports. In those confidential reports, if you are moving from school X to school Y, school Y will ask school X whether the parent is a good parent, whether the parent attend meetings, whether the parent can afford, whether the parent is not problematic. By that, it means that they are denying the child the right to access to education on the basis of the conduct of the parent, which is something that is not there within our rules and regulations. But we're quite excited that it will also alleviate pressure. You know what happens that most people believe that the pressure is only on former Model C schools. The pressure actually is on township schools because if former Model C schools don't want to accept you, where do you go? You go back to the township schools. And that's where you find that you have to buy new furniture, you have to buy new textbook, appoint new principals, appoint new teachers, purely because of the large number. So this judgment will then distribute equally the resources and the facilities across the system.
The thing that disturbs me is that school governing bodies have been using this as a sort of smoke screen for the kind of activities that happen on the school grounds as well. On a personal note, my son is at a school here in Johannesburg where they're not allowed to play soccer on the school grounds. Although the school has a rugby heritage and lots of facilities, there's always the argument, no, we don't have space for football. Will this ruling help in us breaking the back of that kind of, I would want to call it, interference?
Definitely. I mean, schools should be centers of unearthing talent. Schools must not be centers that block talent or discourage talent. You know, so if a school behaves in that particular fashion, I'll be disappointed, and I'll be the first one to intervene to find a way why that school is not providing learners an opportunity. I mean, to deny a learner even to bring a soccer ball in a school inside the school premises is really disturbing. But let me tell you what this judgment says. It says that you can be taught in your mother tongue. If you want to be taught in Afrikaans, you can be taught in Afrikaans. What we are saying as a department, when you are taught in your mother tongue, it does not mean you must exclusively be alone in that school. There can be somebody who can be taught in English in the same school, so that there is intercultural relations and social cohesion within the school premises. But people believe that it has to be them and them alone. So only their children matters. Other children don't matter. And it's something that we want to persuade. And I've asked our office to convene a meeting with various communities, especially the Afrikaner community, because there is a new swart gevaar now. People say this judgment means that the standard of education will drop, there will be overcrowding in the classroom, will not have access to quality education. And I can assure you, people who are uttering those statements, they've got ulterior agenda. We want quality education to be available to everyone, and that quality education must not be expensive and must be accessible.
And we have to share the burden fully. Want to ask you, though, on the back of what you've said, the school governing bodies, they put forward, they say the power is being taken away from them. Your reaction to that, or is it a case of there's been a misuse of power in a way?
There's been lots of it. Remember, schools are the center of community. So the community around the school has the right to influence the direction of that school as well. But SGB believed that it's only the parents inside that school that have a right to influence the direction of the school. Hence, these contradictions that we wanted to sharpen and clear. Our belief is simple. The school belongs to all of us. Let's work together through the SGBs, because they're playing a very important role. They're sacrificing their time, they're sacrificing their skills to ensure that there's quality education around those schools. But don't abuse that power. Let's work together. We will not abuse the new power that we've acquired. We are not going to bulldoze everyone to say, just because the Constitutional Court has agreed with us, it's us alone, no one else. We'll work together with those SGBs. But what is very important is the interest of the learner that must be taken into consideration.
You won this landmark case now here in Gauteng. Is this a process that you will drive and would like to see happen in the rest of the country's schools? Definitely,
definitely, because we suffer the same fate across the country. I'm very hopeful that the minister as well will take leave from this judgment and either introduce new regulations that will allow it to, just will allow all schools in our country to benefit out of this important landmark case.
And implementation, of course, that's important. When would you start the implementation process after this ruling now?
Well, we have already started. Fortunately, this morning I was addressing our management team. They've given us a rollout plan. We're quite convinced that come, say, the end of this year, would have provided all the relevant clarities that are needed so that at the beginning of next year in 2017, we all know where we stand as a country.
In conclusion, sir, last week I saw you table the provincial education budget. Are we going to see the resources being spread a little bit more evenly? Are we going to see township schools being developed and so forth more?
I'm excited with that program, actually. Until we fix township education, we're not going to fix the education challenges that we have in our province. So we're investing all our resources, and it's starting to yield dividends. You know, the top bachelor passes are starting to come from the township. Maths learners are starting to come from the township. The infrastructure that we're improving is starting to take shape in our townships, as well as the rollout of our ICT infrastructure. So we are quite excited with our investment in township education, and I'm quite convinced that come next year, we'll start to see dividends that will impress all of us.
Mr. Lesufi, this is wonderful news for me. I can finally tell my son that he can now take a soccer ball to school. Thank you very much.
Thank
you very much for joining us today. That's Mr. Panyaza Lesufi. He's the MEC of the Gauteng Provincial Department of Basic Education. Thank you once again, sir.
Thanks so much, sir. Thanks.
Now, of course, as we always do on a Monday morning, let's take a look at what's happened on social media, what's been happening over the weekend. We start off with the trends from the weekend. Of course, the Comrades Marathon leaped to the front pages, after a fantastic performance, a record-breaking performance. It was, of course, followed by the weekly trends of the MPA decision, President, as well as the spy tapes case, as well as Hammanskraal protest over forced evictions. In international news, it was the US elections followed by the Olympics. Now this hour, M1 rehab is the hashtags. Motorists can expect heavy delays as the M1 South has been reduced to 2 lanes in the Killarney area as part of the N1 rehab project. Of course, we saw the pictures just now. Comrades 2016, that hashtag. South Africa flew the flag high yesterday as we celebrate many top positions from our local athletes. Of course, the star on the day was David Radebe. He won the men's title, beating the records set by Shane Bosman, while Shane Bosman took the women's win. There's some beautiful pictures that were taken yesterday. I think we've seen them already. Of course, in other sports, Lewis Hamilton won the Grand Prix in Monaco, the big one, his 44th win. And, Justin Bieber, we were spotted attending the Grand Prix. There he is, chatting to Lewis Hamilton for most of the day. Let's hope that, he doesn't teach Lewis how to party. Another hashtag, gorilla. There's been an outcry on Twitter over the killing of a gorilla at the Ohio Zoo after a 4-year-old toddler fell into its enclosure. People are saying that the gorilla looked like it was protecting the child. And there you see the picture. Time now for us to take out our picture of the day. Now this one comes from our very own Griselda Lewis. Here it is. It shows gas cylinders, those grey things in the background there. Gas cylinders that were found at the Wits Law Library. The university says they were meant to use as a lightning agent to torch the building there behind us. You can go have a look at it at hashtag SABC News. Of course, on Friday last week, we asked you what were your views about the blesser phenomenon. Let's take a look. There's been lots of comment around it. I was quite disturbed over the weekend. You could even get tips to how to become a blesser. That's rather unethical, I felt. Anyhow, France Masvi said, Newsroom, this thing of blessers is just to destroy our young, beautiful sisters. Work hard to make your future bright. France, that is so on point, my friend. We need to teach our women to sustain and support themselves. Doc Moses says, nothing new about blessers, as they've always been there, thriving under the name of sugar daddies back in the old days, says Doc Moses. Vilane Zanele Dlamini says, Blessers are not new. Transactional sex is a known driver of HIV. The blesser you invited there was economical with the truth. That, of course, was some of the guests that we had in on Friday. The establishment says, Newsroom, they aren't blessers. They're freelance bailout specialists. They're a little bit of humour. Then Kellen Love, who says, Newsroom, it's the name that's new, not the concept. Cultural marriages, then sugar daddies, no difference, same things. Yes, the blessers phenomenon. Couldn't believe a weekend newspaper was put a guide up how to become a blesser, but that was very unethical. Anyhow, let's take a look now at front pages from around the globe. We'll start in Europe this morning. The Times reports that, of course, the gorilla was shot dead after a 4-year-old boy climbed into enclosure at Cincinnati Zoo. That happened yesterday. Then in the US, the Financial Times says fighting flared up across Iraq yesterday as government and Kurdish forces stepped up efforts to dislodge ISIS fighters from strongholds in Fallujah and around Mosul. Finally, in Iran, the Tehran Times reports that after several rounds of negotiation between Iranian and Saudi officials to thrash out discrepancies over the Hajj issue, yesterday Hajj and Pilgrimage Organization of Iran announced it won't dispatch pilgrims this year to Mecca because of inconsistency at decision-making level by the Saudis. Let's take a look now at what's happening in the courts here in South Africa. We'll start, of course, in Cape Town. It is, the most talked about case here in South Africa today. The sentencing proceedings in the kidnapping case of Zephany Nurse will get underway in the Western Cape High Court. Zephany was kidnapped at the Groote Schuur Hospital when she was just 3 days old. A 51-year-old woman who raised her was found guilty, and that will be the sentencing procedure. We stay in Cape Town. 14 suspects arrested in connection with countrywide social grant fraud are expected to appear in the Bellville Magistrates Court there. The syndicate is believed to have defrauded the Social Security Agency, SASSA, of an estimated 34 million rand nationally. 8 SASSA officials from Tlokwe in the northwest and Krugersdorp here in Gauteng were arrested last week, as well as 6 members of the public in Cape Town. We'll be sure to keep you updated as to what happens in those cases, very much on the same channel throughout the rest of the week. Don't forget our question of the day. Should schools be open to all nationwide, irrespective of where you live? Should you be allowed to play football on a school and not be banned by the school governing body? That's the question we ask you today. Of course, we had the MEC in. He gave us his view. We'll continue the discussion around this topic after a short break when Elvis has another interview. So don't go away.
Health Talk unpacks healthy tips to help you to practice healthy living lifestyles.
Now, generally, type 1 is found mostly in children and young adults, and with type 2 diabetes is found mainly in the older generation and also with an issue of obesity.
Don't have second portions, and then I brought this plate model to show that for both meals, your lunch, your dinner, half a plate should be vegetables.
Within sports, we see the spectrum itself. Most often we see minor head contact injuries, we call them.
Right.
But certainly in sports, the one that a lot of attention is paid to is concussion.
You see, you've got something, boom, but it's uncontrolled. Whereas in soccer, when the guy hits the ball, it's controlled. His neck muscles are controlling it. And that's why they say, for instance, in rugby, the training should be to improve your neck strength.
For more on health, join your host, Dr. Selo Motaung, every Saturday from 9 to 10 a.m.
Now, the theme for this morning, we focus on schools, and as you know, the landmark ruling, of course, you heard the MEC there just now, and the question that we posed to you this morning, should schools be open to all, nationwide, irrespective of where you live? That's the question that we want to pose to you. Would like to get your thoughts on the Facebook page as well as on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. Right, so let us know what's on your mind and we'll come back to your comments in a short while. Now, all Gauteng schools should be open for all children. This was the key statement made by the MEC for Education, Panyaza Lesufi, following the ruling by the High Court to suspend the 5-kilometer radius admission system. You just heard him as well, right here on Newsroom saying the same. He said that all the department was trying to do was to ensure access to schools for all children in the province, which had not been realized due to the legacy of apartheid. But what does this actually mean for schools now? Joining us from our Cape Town studio is the CEO of the Governing Body Foundation, Tim Gordon. Mr. Gordon, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Morning, Elvis, to you and to your viewers. Good to be with you.
First and foremost, I would like to get your reaction to the landmark ruling.
I think that the ruling was not unexpected, and I think that there is very, very little that one can criticize in respect of that ruling in terms of the philosophies, the beliefs, the understandings that it has around education. I think that there are some practical things that are going to have to play out and will have to be managed very, very carefully as we do that. But in essence, I don't think that any right-thinking person is going to differ much from what was said by the Constitutional Court on these matters.
Now, the ruling seeks to remove the limitations of school learners so they can choose to go to any school which they would like to. Your thoughts on that? And what impact will that have on schools in suburbs as well as townships?
In essence, I think there wouldn't be much argument with that. There are certainly practicalities. I think that you were a little harsh in the introduction that was presented before this. The real problem comes is you say that anybody can go to any school. I know that the figures that have been quoted by the MEC in Gauteng have suggested that a school like Pretoria Boys High had 1,800 applications for grade 8 for next year, soon after the applications had opened. Now the practicality becomes, how can a school accept 1,800 people in one class? In the end, there's going to have to be some way or other of deciding which of the 1,800 can go to that school of first choice and which ones will have to go to a school of second or third choice. A school is not elastic. It can't simply expand to accept everybody that applies. And the practicalities are that if the parents live in one place, they work in a different place, how do they get their children to a third place? So all of that is going to have to be worked out very carefully. And the way in which, in the end, some or other selection has to be made to decide which of those oversubscribed schools are going to have to take which learners and how they're going to do that on a fair basis in accord with the ruling that we had from the Constitutional Court. So we'll need to sit down together, and the Constitutional Court did rule that as well, together with the MEC, and see if we can work out an equitable system which meets the needs of our young people, which is our very first priority, and the requirements of the court ruling, which of course can in no way be overlooked.
Has your powers as the governing body been eroded by this particular ruling?
I think that this particular ruling is part of a batch of rulings and a batch of actions which certainly have seen a diminution of the powers of governing bodies. I don't like the use of the word powers. The governing bodies, I think many of them act very, very differently from what we heard in the inset at the beginning here. And I think that they deserve the credit for having produced in some of our suburban schools virtually the only public space in South Africa that can be occupied by people of different races, different cultures, different languages, different religions, different economic backgrounds, and still work towards common goals and have common opportunities. There are schools which have given away per annum 2 million rand to ensure that they have expanded the options open to people who wouldn't be living in that area or wouldn't historically have been living in that area. There are massive transformations in the type of sport that is offered. It would really be a huge exception if a governing body were to rule that a soccer ball is not allowed to be used on the playing fields. They were given, though, in the rights, the privileges, the incentives, whatever you want to call them, at the beginning of this process in the 1990s, the right to make decisions about which will be the official sports offered by a school, which will be the staff members appointed with the collaboration of the education department to teach in those schools, which would be the language policies, religion policies, and so on. And certainly we are seeing a pattern of those incentives, rights, privileges being eroded.
Now,
we have already seen erosion of the right to make policies on religion, now on admissions, already on language, on things such as which activities could be offered extramurally.
Mm-hmm.
There is certainly talk about some limitation on school fee increases, the taking away of the right of governing bodies to make recommendations about appointments at promotion level. So yes, there certainly is an attack on the promises that were made in our South African Schools Act, and we believe also constitutionally, in democratizing education.
Yes. Now, Mr. Gordon,
making a new layer there at governing body level.
Now, Mr. Gordon, the financial status of a parent, a child's marks and employment details of the parent, that's very important. These were required on an application. How will that now impact on the school's admission process, especially for ordinary students that come out from the rural areas or from the peri-urban areas?
Well, I think let's just put one point right straight away. It has always been part of the South African Schools Act, the admissions policies, and the thinking of all right-thinking governing bodies, that you do not take into account. It is illegal to take into account, and it is illegal to ask for things such as bank statements on application. And if people are asking for bank statements, then we would say that those are the people that should be taken to task, and not to tar every school with the same brush. As far as things are concerned, like the reports, the individual reports on learners, those, some would argue, are being used to protect learners, to see that you don't get people who are a real danger to their fellow classmates getting into a school. We can understand that there must be place for those. But in the end, what the real need is not to try and manipulate entry through legislation, but to ensure that all our schools, or as many of our schools as possible, become desirable places to be, and not only have 10 or 12% of desirable schools in a sea of mediocrity.
Mr. Gordon, just lastly, and just briefly, the 5-kilometer radius admission process, would you, in hindsight, say that this particular limitation was basically making sure that the rural areas and the township areas and children from and learners from those areas were excluded into areas such as suburban areas where the better schools were?
Not at all. Not at all. The rural people possibly yes, but certainly not township people. If you look at a 5-kilometer radius around any of those suburban schools, remember that means a 10-kilometer diameter. Now, within that radius, you have, even for the very top schools, informal settlements, you have townships, you have in the Western Cape things like the Cape Flats developments. All of those fall within the radius of some of our absolutely top schools. And the other thing about it is that the governing bodies have often gone beyond that. Remember that that 5-kilometer radius, which we attacked from the beginning, was only put in place as an interim measure and only in Gauteng. None of the other provinces use that. So we are quite happy to see the 5-kilometer radius situation go away. We thought it was not well thought through at the beginning, and we believe it has not been a successful measure in the interim. We're very glad to see that go.
Mr. Gordon, thank you so much for your time and joining us in our Cape Town studios.
Pleasure, good to have been with you.
That was Tim Gordon, the CEO of the Governing Body Foundation, joining us on the line, giving us his thoughts in terms of what would it do to the governing bodies and to schools. Right now, it's over to Eben for more comments.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was very interesting. A very interesting take, a different take from the Gauteng MEC, Elvis, but it's nice to hear that there's discussion around this, because there are instances where it's being used as a process to exclude, and that should come to an end.
You would find that the cream of the crop will end up on all the good schools and all the good areas, and the bad areas are being excluded. And that is the problem with the system.
Yeah, I'd like to see how it's going to be policed. I think that will be the interesting scenario playing out for our kids over the next couple of months and the years to come. Thanks, Elvis. Of course, one of the great achievements in modern athletics happened yesterday. I don't think South Africa realizes how big this achievement from South Africa's David Khatebe was when he won the men's Comrades Marathon in a record time. 5 hours, 18 minutes and 19 seconds. That's in the 89-kilometer down run from Pietermaritzburg to Durban. Some people have caught on Facebook that this was simply one of the great sporting achievements of the modern era. P says the myriad of emotions that you go through, goosebumps talking about the Comrades Marathon. Yes, some of my friends finished in just under 11 hours. Thinker says, congratulations to David Khatebe for winning, and thank you for the new record. Of course, proudly South African that is now, from the Thinker. South African Heroes talks congrats to Shanray Bosman, who won the women's race in 6 hours, 26:10. Wow, heartbreak for Caroline Bosman, who lost the lead with just 2 kilometers to go. Yes, it was an incredible race day down in KwaZulu-Natal. Let's move on now. Take a look at Newsroom Facebook page. Our rescue teams at Impala Platinum Mines in Rustenburg have worked throughout the weekend searching for missing miner Moses Mamogwa without any success at this stage. We can report then a psychiatrist from the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, SADAG, Dr. Antoinette Mirich, says substance abuse and the environment may trigger bipolar disorder. Then, finally, the Lesotho Civil Organization, the Free Movement of Basotho, has once again called for a merger of the Mountain Kingdom into South Africa. Now, that would be very interesting. More on that story on our Newsroom Facebook page if you go back and have a look at it. Very interesting read it is, I can tell you. Time now for us to take a short commercial break. We'll be back with more right after this.
To be African is beautiful. To be African is a privilege.
It represents hard work. It represents being able to stand on your own.
And respecting other cultures as well.
It's about promoting African heritage.
We are all Africans. Let's come together so that we can have a formidable force.
Our cultures interlink with one another.
And by standing together and embracing one another, you know, there's power in unity.
It is time to cut off this issue of xenophobia.
I stand for African unity. I stand for promoting unity in Africa because
there are many opportunities
to be whatever you want to be.
Africa is one of the most important continents.
Because if we can come together as one, we will be able to actually build a better Africa, the new Africa for the future. And if we unite our hearts and our minds together and we go forward, we will conquer.
So let us all arise and be proudly African.
Being an African is who I am right now.
I'm proudly African. I love Africa.
Wishing you all a very happy Africa Month.
One love.
Welcome back here with Newsroom. We were going to continue with our discussion around the landmark ruling with regards to the 5-kilometre radius. We put the question up. We want you to interact with us. Unfortunately, Equal Education, well, they've just pulled out of the interview, but we'll change gears and shift our focus a little bit. Since the beginning of this year alone, there have been numerous cases of vandalism and damaging of property, public property, that is, burning of tyres to burning trains, buses. Schools, universities have all become targets of these criminal acts. The Department of Higher Education says that recent instances at universities have caused more than 145 million rands worth of damage. That's just since the beginning of this year. A brand new science lab at the Northwest University was burnt down, as well as a graduation hall at the University of Johannesburg. Then also, devastating, more than 28 schools in Vuani, Limpopo. They've been burnt down, causing more than 50,000 learners to be left without a place to be educated. The Minister of Education, Angie Motshekga, has called this a crisis. Now I'm joined via Skype from his private practice in the East Rand, a psychologist and lecturer at the University of Johannesburg, Dr. Gerhard Schwa. A very good morning to you, Dr. Schwa. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, sir. Glad to be with you.
Dr. Schwa, just give us an idea. Why do you think we're seeing the burning of especially our schools and other facilities of learning in South Africa?
Do you want a long answer or the short answer? Yes, it's on various levels. You can look at on an individual level where people are frustrated because they cannot achieve what they want to achieve, and they get frustrated, and when they get frustrated they get angry, and then they release their anger on symbols of the established order. Basically, that's the short answer. Whether it be schools, whether it be a university auditorium like at UJ, or stopping cars, they have to vent their anger because it's bubbling over.
Where does this mindset come from, do you think?
The mindset, I think politics comes into this. So there's a personal level, then there's a political level. I think I cannot actually speak for the political level. That's not my field of expertise. I can have an opinion about it because I just think they're also frustrated because maybe promises have been made that in their perceptions they see haven't been actually listened to and fulfilled. And again, that gives rise to frustration, anger, and then it boils over into violence. Yeah.
What about the mob mentality? You know, here at the SABC, we've decided to no longer broadcast violent protest video material for the simple reason that a mob mentality exists and people tend to mimic this kind of behavior, not just in South Africa, we've seen it elsewhere in the world. Will that help in your view?
Say again?
Will that help in your view?
Will vandalism help?
No, will not screening vandalism, unnecessary violent protests and the burning of our facilities.
We're not screening it on television. I think television has a tremendous influence on people's behavior, on their thinking and on their feeling. And from a psychological perspective, I think not showing it will actually calm the situation, in my view, from what I've read, from what I know. Yes, that is my opinion. I know people are saying it's draconian and it's PW Botha tactics from the apartheid era. Yes, but I think it will calm down the situation. It can have an effect. I don't know how much it will, but it can definitely have a calming effect. Yes.
What about the effect that this kind of thing have on students? Students are in perpetually studying, taking in information, preparing for exams and so forth. Do you think this kind of thing would set back the process of learning?
What would set back the process of learning?
The disruptions that we see, the constant disruptions and the targeting of our institutions of learning.
Yes. Well, I teach at University of Johannesburg, so I've got a daughter who's at university, so I experience it firsthand. I've experienced the disruptions 1980s, 1990s while I was teaching as well at university. Is exceptionally disrupting. It is exceptionally disrupting. Studying at university is like abstract, cognitive, theoretical activity, which is the highest level of thinking. So it is also most susceptible to any disturbances of any kind, be it music, be it noise, and then especially these demonstrations and disruptions that we are seeing now. It's really untenable to actually do as well as you could if you have these disruptions. What actually makes it worse is the insecurity that it creates. That is the worst thing. You don't know what to expect. You come to campus, you don't know what to expect. That kind of uncertainty is really killing.
Dr. Shua, thank you for joining us. We've run out of time. All the best for you today. That is Dr. Gerhard Shua. He's a psychologist as well as a lecturer at the University of Johannesburg, and he says the SABC's decision to no longer broadcast violent protest visuals is a good thing because, in his professional opinion, people mimic each other, and that mimicry can often spread out of control. Very simple. Now we move on. There's been an outcry on Twitter over the killing of a gorilla at an Ohio zoo. This after a 4-year toddler fell into its disclosure. People are saying that the gorilla looked like it was protecting the child. However, the mother may face other charges. Here are some comments. Of course, you can imagine this is this kind of emotional thing that really gets people going. Thank you to zookeepers and parents for all their hard work and sacrifices. Don't play the blame game, says One Life. Ishmael says, we are not civilized enough to respecting animals' rights. Shame. Dear gorilla, I don't have enough money to hire a genius attorney, he says. Then Lioness Leah says, my main question, gorilla, why is there no fencing? How did the child even survive the fall? Tranquilizers, parenting, all these questions are up. Of course, the mother is very much in the line of sight right now. Kayla says, this doesn't add up. A child doesn't just get into an animal enclosure without someone noticing. Let's not play the blame game. It happened. Fortunately, the victim seems to be the gorilla. That's where we end our first hour. Before we end, this is our question. Should schools be open to all nationwide, irrespective of where you live? That's the question we asked today. We've heard all the protagonists in the picture telling us exactly what they thought. What do you think is what we want to know. Anyhow, time for us now to go to the weather with Azwi.
Thanks very much and warm welcome. Let's take a look at your weather details. Starting off with Southern Africa, where we're seeing a high pressure system sitting over the interior of South Africa. Some onshore flow wind due to that high pressure system, resulting to partly cloudy skies over the interior of Mozambique with 30% chance of showers along the coastal regions of Mozambique and the central interior. Over South Africa, it will be clear. Botswana, Zimbabwe and most parts of Namibia for today. Tomorrow, we're still expecting similar conditions. That high pressure system continue to sit over the northern parts of South Africa. Towards the western parts, we have a cold front making its way, bringing in partly cloudy skies with 30 and 60% chance of showers on Wednesday. But tomorrow, it will remain partly cloudy over the Western Cape to clear skies over the interior of South Africa, and along the coastal regions of Mozambique will receive 30% chance of showers. But most parts of SADC will be partly cloudy to clear skies. Temperatures will reach a maximum of 22 over Pretoria with sunny skies for today and 20 over Bloemfontein, 18 over Cape Town with partly cloudy skies. If you will be in Lusaka, do expect a maximum of 24 degrees. Towards the central interior, we're still seeing 30% chance of showers over most parts, but 60 over Addis Ababa, Kampala, covered by 30% chance of showers. Otherwise, partly cloudy skies to clear skies over most parts of the central interior for today. Tomorrow, we're still seeing 30% chance of showers situated over the northern parts with Bangui covered by 30% chance of showers, and Yaoundé, Addis Ababa still covered by 30 to 60% chance of showers. Otherwise, partly cloudy skies over most parts of the central interior for tomorrow. Kampala will reach a maximum of 23 degrees with 30% chance of showers and 24 over Addis Ababa, just partly cloudy skies. Along the coastal regions, we're just seeing partly cloudy skies with hot temperatures in the low 30s. Towards Kinshasa, we're seeing partly cloudy skies with no rain forecast. Yaoundé covered by drizzle with a maximum of 26 degrees and 30 over Bangui. Moving towards the Middle East, we're still seeing partly cloudy skies to clear skies over the interior. Sana'a covered by 30% chance of showers for today. Otherwise, just partly cloudy skies over most parts of the Sahara Desert. Tomorrow, we're still expecting similar conditions. Clear skies over Cairo, Damascus, and Baghdad. No rain is forecast over most parts of these regions for tomorrow. Just seeing hot temperatures for today with a maximum of 40 over Al Jof and Tripoli at a maximum of 28 degrees with partly cloudy skies. 31 if you will be in Damascus for today. Do expect sunny skies over those regions. Mika at a maximum of 41 degrees and 30 over Sana'a. If you will be in Khartoum, do expect a maximum of 41 degrees. Towards the coastal regions, we're seeing Lagos covered by 30% chance of showers, but over the interior of Nigeria, continuing with 30% chance of showers. Abidjan covered by 30 to 60% chance of showers, and something heavy is forecast over those regions. Otherwise, just partly cloudy skies to clear skies over the northern parts of Africa. That is all from the weather desk. Stay tuned.
What's wrong with Triple M? What is illegal here? Who is being defrauded here, Trevor?
It is about the best interest of the citizens of this country.
But the citizens are the ones who are playing, who are members or participants in this. If you put in 15,000 rand, after 12 months you get 1.2 million rands. I mean, who wouldn't go for this?
Watch Question Time with me, Mpho Tsedu, Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m. on the SABC News Channel.
To be African is beautiful. To be African is a privilege.
It represents hard work. It represents being able to stand on your own.
And respecting other cultures as well.
It's about promoting African heritage.
We are all Africans. Let's come together so that we can have a formidable force.
Our cultures interlink with one another.
And by standing together and embracing one another, you know, there's power in unity.
It is time to cut off this issue of xenophobia.
I stand for African unity. I stand for promoting unity in Africa because
there are many opportunities
to be whatever you want to be.
Africa is one of the most important continents.
Because if we can come together as one, we will be able to actually build a better Africa, the new Africa for the future. And if we unite our hearts and our minds together and we go forward, we will conquer.
So let us all arise and be proudly African.
Being an African is who I am right now.
I'm proudly African. I love Africa.
Wishing you all a very happy Africa Month.
One love.
We're heading to a future of cars that will drive themselves and a place where robots will be doing some of our chores. But the challenge in Africa is to make sure that everyone is part of this new world.
To be behind with technology, it is a challenge for us as offenders.
There are many initiatives to ensure that Africans are truly connected.
We're now giving more access and internet to now the end
users.
On Network, we have information on Africa's technology landscape, possibilities for the future, and some great African innovations. That's Network with me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time.
It's Monday, the 30th of May, 2016. This is Newsroom on SABC News, Channel 404. Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to the second hour as we broadcast live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg to the rest of the African continent. I'm Elvis Preston. I'll be with you until 12 o'clock. We're also streaming live on YouTube with the entire show available on our YouTube channel. Now today we focus on the landmark ruling by the High Court to suspend the 5-kilometer radius admission system. The Gauteng Education Department will now have the final say over government schools' admission processes to ensure access to schools for all children in the province. So the question that we pose to you today is, should schools be open to all nationwide, irrespective of where you live? That's the question we want to pose to you. We'd like to get your comments on the Twitter handle as well as on the Facebook page, Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. But first, let's take a look at your news headlines. The African National Congress in Gauteng expresses confidence of filling the FNB Stadium for its provincial election manifesto launch that's coming this weekend. The SACP praises the public broadcaster for banning visuals showing violent protest. And sentencing proceedings underway in the Zephany nurse kidnapping case. Those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front.
Thank you very much, Elvis. Hearty good morning to you. It's been a very interesting weekend, I can tell you. Sports-wise, it's been absolutely amazing. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the show today.
This is it, the final few metres. He's running under our noses at Sahara Stadium, Kingsby. David Khatebe, South African, smashes the Comrades record of 5.
David Khatebe wins his first Comrades Marathon, shattering a 9-year-old record for the down race by 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And the University of Pretoria started a desperate campaign to stay in the Premier Soccer League on the back foot as it was 1-0 at home to Mbombela United.
He survived everything that's been thrown at him here today. And Lewis Hamilton takes his first win of 2016. Hamilton wins in Monaco for his 44th career victory.
All this as defending champion Lewis Hamilton secures his first win of the 2016 Formula One season in a dramatic, crash-filled Monaco Grand Prix.
To settle for second place after a hard-driven event, and Sergio Perez takes a brilliant third.
Now, all this more we'll have for you. I'll also be chatting to Jody Hendricks to wrap it all up for you. So back to you, Elvis, for the news.
Thank you, Kendall. He'll be back with more later. Top story this hour. The African National Congress in Gauteng says it's on track to fill up the 94,000-seat FNB Stadium on Saturday. The party will launch its provincial manifesto at what it promises will be the ANC's biggest rally this year.
This Saturday, all roads lead to FNB Stadium. Well, that's according to the ANC in Gauteng, which wants to fill up the biggest stadium in the country.
We have concluded our list processes, which often divide a lot of our members. Now we are focusing on the campaign, and you will see the first message we are sending, FNB Stadium will be full.
Yes. It's a mammoth task these volunteers are entrusted with, but the door-to-door mobilization hasn't been a walk in the park.
Where we have made mistakes, we ourselves would like to work with the people of our province and our cities here in the province to fix those problems.
With opposition parties eyeing the city of Tshwane, the ANC in Gauteng says on August the 3rd it will retain all municipalities in the province and win back Midvaal. Aldrin Simpier, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The South African Communist Party has praised the SABC's decision to ban visuals showing destructive service delivery protest. The party's provincial general secretary made the comments on the sidelines of the launch of its election program to support the African National Congress.
Rallying the Communist Party faithful to back the African National Congress in the local government elections. The recent announcement by the SABC that it would not show destruction during protests drew praise from the party.
I'm very much pleased that the SABC already has taken a stand that it will not, cover protests where destruction of property is involved. Now, I've heard people saying this amount to censorship, it amounts to, tampering with freedom of expression. I've noted and heard all of those. I will not enter into whether they are right or wrong, onto merits or demerits of that. What I commend the SABC for is they've taken a stand against destruction of public property.
And a swipe against those using the Nkandla saga to criticize the ANC.
There was something there called collusion on price. So what happened in Nkandla, whilst we tend to look at it in isolation, we can't resolve the problems that manifested themselves in Nkandla outside dealing with the entire practice of manipulating costs, manipulating scope in construction project management.
While the SACP leadership here has been resolute in its call for members to support the ANC in the upcoming local government elections, leaders have been quick to admit that Gauteng remains a problem province. The SACP says it is already deploying party members to canvass support for the ANC. Dumalo Mohlaudi, SABC News, Boksburg.
The Western Cape Premier Helen Zille was in Pretoria this weekend to support the DA mayoral candidate for the Tshwane Metro, Solium Simanga, in the upcoming local government elections. The DA, which has the Cape Town Metro under its wing, is targeting Tshwane, Johannesburg and the Nelson Mandela metros. The township vote is crucial for its success.
A door-to-door campaign to garner that all-important vote. The DA says communities can stay as they are for life or vote for change. It says every city can be as clean as Cape Town.
Local government is about clean running water. Local government is about proper sewerage. Local government is about roads and electricity and decent community safety, all of those things. And if you come to a place like Itireleng, you see what failed local government looks like.
The party's mayoral candidate says given the chance, he'll give meaning to the words for Itireleng residents.
This is one of the townships that year in, year out, you hear the mayor talking about coming to fix this area here, but you have seen for yourself the kind of condition that we find here.
The DA believes both Tshwane and the Nelson Mandela metros are within its grasp.
Meanwhile, EFF leader Julius Malema says he wants to rid all municipalities in the country of corruption. Now, this was his message to EFF supporters in Pietermaritzburg and Durban, where he wrapped up his three-day election manifesto campaign in KwaZulu-Natal.
Malema received a warm welcome. The party will be contesting the local government election for the first time, and it hoped to build on the inroads it made in KZN during the 2014 national elections. In his address, Malema said the EFF won't tolerate corruption and nepotism. He urged the electorate to vote for the EFF, as he wants to change the political landscape in all municipalities.
You have no dignity without a flushing toilet. The reason we are crying for a flushing toilet is because we want to restore your dignity. You cannot build a house after 1994 without a flushing toilet.
He also urged candidates for the local government election to humble themselves and serve the citizens of the country.
We don't want to give you food parcels. We want to give you a job so that you can buy your own food and the food of your choice.
Malema's last stop was at Umlazi. He called on the community in the area to vote for his party. Londi Khatebe, SABC News, Durban.
There's a large media contingent outside the Western Cape High Court where sentencing procedures are set to start in the case of the woman convicted of kidnapping Zephany Nurse 19 years ago. In March this year, a 51-year-old Lavender Hill woman was found guilty of charges of kidnapping, fraud and contravening sections of the Children's Act. Nurse was kidnapped out of the Groote Schuur hospital when she was only 3 days old. The defense will first lead the evidence during the proceedings. They expected to call at least 2 witnesses to take the stand in the woman's defense.
It's a case that has drawn international attention. A baby snatched at birth from hospital and reunited with her biological parents after 17 years. Zephany was raised in Lavender Hill, a stone's throw away from where her biological parents lived. Last year, the nurse's younger daughter started school at the same institution where Zephany was doing matric. Their striking resemblance the first clues that led to a drama-filled trial. Western Cape Judge President John Klope found that she had deceived everyone, including her husband, for almost 18 years. Shortly before her conviction, the woman told SABC News she regrets not telling the truth sooner.
I'm very happy that load is also off my shoulders because it was hindering me for years. Who's a mom, who's a dad. And at this moment, I'm very happy she found him. But it's just a pity she had to find out that way last year. It should have come from me.
Her husband has pledged to continue supporting his wife.
I am standing with her all the way through this, and I will always be there for her. Whatever the outcome may be, I will be there for her and my daughter.
A court order prevents the media from identifying Zephany. The teenager will now testify for the state during sentencing procedures. The convicted kidnapper is currently behind bars. Berenice Moss, SABC News, Cape Town.
14 suspects arrested in connection with countrywide social grant fraud are expected to appear in the Bellville Magistrates Court today. The syndicate is believed to have defrauded the Social Security Agency, or SASSA, of an estimated 34 million rand nationally. 8 SASSA officials from Tlokwe in the northwest and Krugersdorp in Gauteng were arrested last week, as well as 6 members of the public in Cape Town. Western Cape Minister for Social Development says they're excited and they applaud SASSA, the police and the integrity committee that exist within SASSA for their investigation. NGO Save the Children SA says many young South Africans have experienced sexual, physical and emotional abuse or have been exposed to high rates of violence by the time they are 15. The NGO says that children who have been abused are likely to develop mental and physical health problems. This, as South Africa is marking Child Protection Week, which started yesterday. Celebrated under the theme, Let Us All Protect Children to Move South Africa Forward, the Social Development Minister, Batabile Dlamini, launched Child Protection Week yesterday in the Northwest Province. A recent UBS Optimus study on child safety shows that girls bear the brunt of abuse, neglect or bullying, while the boys are more likely to experience other forms of violence. The NGO says children who have been abused are likely to develop mental and physical health problems. Now, in light of the landmark ruling by the Constitutional Court to do away with the 5-kilometer radius schooling admission system, the MEC for Education, Paniasa Lesufi, said that the department was trying to ensure access to schools for all children in the province, which had previously not had access due to apartheid systems. But now that children can choose from any school, what is being done to uplift and develop the schools in the rural and township areas for the children who do not have a choice to travel further? Now, joining us from our Cape Town studio is the General Secretary of Equal Education, Tsepo Motsepe. Tsepo, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning, Elvis.
Mr. Mosepe, what is your reaction to the outcome of the Constitutional Court case? Was this long overdue?
Well, Elvis, we welcome the Constitutional Court ruling and having been admitted into the case as a friend of the court. We had wanted to raise a critical issue around the case, which was in trying to combat apartheid geography spacing in South Africa, which is at the heart of transformation and reconciliation in this country. We needed to alert the court to the continued struggle for poor families to access good schools in the country. And I think with this ruling we have achieved that goal in persuading the court that they should prioritize the provision of schooling and access to schools for poor children as something which will see a change in mindset when we speak of transformation in the country.
Now, this 5-kilometer radius issue, this problem, if more schools were equal in their quality of education, I'm talking countrywide now, especially in the rural and township areas, what is being done to upgrade and develop those kind of schools, especially in the areas that were not really upgraded? Well,
there is some work that is taking place by the state, but I think what is at the center of this court ruling is what one might call the unequal distribution of resources in the current education dispensation. I think this court ruling, as it applies more, while it was spearheaded by the Gauteng Department of Education, it would have applied more to the Western Cape if one were to use that example. For instance, in the Western Cape, you've got a huge divide between affluent areas and your township areas, all separated by a railway line. And you then start seeing the gaps emerge when it comes to people accessing good schools in the province. But I think that at the center of this is how we understand apartheid. Apartheid was all about geography, and it translated into issues, obviously, of race, class, and gender. But at the center of apartheid was where people lived and how they access good economic activities in the country.
Will this not drive children from township schools or previously disadvantaged schools to affluent areas now and leave those schools abandoned?
Well, not necessarily, Elvis. In fact, you know, what we're experiencing now, and this court ruling puts now in the spotlight the department, because now you'd want to have a department beyond the MEC. You'd want to have officials that are brave, because what has been happening in the past is that there's been pressure that is put on township schools to be the ones that accept the large number of learners that apply to them, while just around the corner in more affluent areas you'll have schools which have a capacity of accommodating 1,500 learners running with 800 learners, and department officials not having the bravery to go and confront those schools. So I think at the center of this, you're not going to have an influx already of people now wanting to go to schools. What you're now going to have is the department needs to develop a system where there'll be an equal distribution of learners in all public schools in the province of Gauteng, for instance. And that for us is something which will see township schools in particular not being forced to accept learners beyond the capacity of the schools.
Mm-hmm. Now, the Department of Education here in Gauteng has also started implementing ICT into schools, from computers to iPads. This particular project, will this assist in making sure that students are basically assisted by the government to make sure that they stay in those schools and that the schools and that the learners from those schools can develop even further?
Well, Elvis, I mean, that's a difficult but a simple one to respond to, because on one hand, we need to balance how we critique this, the Department of Education in that province. The introduction of ICT is a step in the right direction, but the over-investment in ICT, neglecting, for instance, the provision of school infrastructure, is a cause for concern. For instance, let me give you an example. In most primary schools in the Gauteng province, and the MEC knows this quite well, in most primary schools, grade 1, 2, and 3 classrooms in that province, you have highly overcrowded classrooms. And you then have a situation where in those classrooms, these learners, you're expecting them to go through 12 years of schooling. So there's an overinvestment in grade 12 classrooms with a smart board costing, for instance, 80,000 Rand. Now, if you don't have a situation where you invest in early childhood development in the province, Majority of those learners that have started school in grade 1, 2, and 3 will not make it to grade 12. So the investment is at the end, whereas the investment should be where it is needed most, in classrooms that are filled to capacity, which means primary schools, you need to build more classrooms, and that is not happening. So you can clearly see that while this ICT project is welcomed, but there seems to be something missing, because I see it as something which is easy to implement. All things being equal, you have a ready-made young people, and young people are already interacting with technology in the country. But we have skipped steps, I think, in this particular project, and we really hope that the MEC will at some point reconsider the overinvestment and the oversupply of ICT, all under the guise that you're trying to keep children in schools. Children drop out of schools for various reasons, and ICT, I don't think, is one of them that will keep them there.
Another issue is safety in schools in light of gang violence and schools becoming targets of protest. Do you think enough is being done to ensure the safety of teachers and pupils at these non-urban schools?
Well, not at all, Elvis. In fact, what we have now is beyond the safety aspect. There ought to be, for instance, in the Western Cape, because of the gang violence in schools around Manenberg area, you had at some point a budget being set up to make sure that security is provided to schools. But because those schools, the departments in different provinces, but in the Western Cape, they are reluctant to release information as to which service provider has received this tender and all those things. Schools find themselves hopeless, being given one security. But beyond that, you need the involvement of the SAPS. We know from other organizations that the South African Police Service and how they've distributed their human resources in and around the country. They're still protecting affluent areas, and township areas are left to their own demise. And that in itself is part of how we understand security. Protect those that have and leave those that do not have to their own demise. And that's what we see. Even our schools are subject to all of these, because the presence of police is non-existent in the areas in which most people come from.
Thank you so much for your time, Tsepo Motsepe. He is the General Secretary of Equal Education in our Cape Town studios. Thank you so much for your time. Now, the DVD of the SABC's Thank You song from several South African artists is now ready and available for the public. Consumers can get it on different platforms, including iTunes. Now, earlier this morning, Mzwaki Mbuli sat down with SABC News to discuss the release of the song.
Bravo, Shauti Motsoeneng and your progressive team. Bravo. You all deserve gold medallions. Donkey Baya. Waya donkey.
You just want to dance, eh?
Donkey Baya. Waya donkey. Waya donkey. Waya donkey.
So the SABC recently announced 90% of content on its radio stations would be local music. They've also increased royalties to 4%. A song was released last week with regards to this, and key to the production of this is the people's poet, Mzwaki Mbuli. Mzwaki, we're inviting you again this morning because you have a video, because I believe that there was reports saying that we made empty promises about
I saw it on the paper saying page 3.
Yes.
The SABC made an empty promise. Here is an empty promise. What do they see? Is the video.
Oh,
it was not easy to do the video.
Yeah.
We did the song, we delivered on Africa Day. Today, it's the video. And the video has got names of fallen legends. Miriam Makeba, Chris McGregor, Brenda Fassie. All those names, as you see, they spin together to form an African map. And it's Africa Day, Africa Month.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So there you go. I mean, you were working in a very short time frame.
It doesn't happen in the music industry.
No, this doesn't. I mean, how long did it take you to
a video
write
plus
the
a song,
put it together, and the video?
No. We overworked ourselves. That is why I said last time, it was just ourselves plus God, and we produce a miracle. There's no way. A human being can never do such a thing.
Yeah.
And that is why we applaud almost everybody, whether the ones unsung, those who clean studios, audio studio to a video studio. But we have delivered, Leon. Here it is. I mean, thanks to SABC, this song has been in all the channels. But I just smiled and laughed when somebody was saying the SABC made an empty promise. People don't know how much work and effort. Look at what we have done. We brought all the names, I'm sure 100 names of all fallen artists. Vuyo Mukwena, Brenda Fassie, Chris McGregor, Johnny Skerkorrel, Ravi Johnson, Dalit Peterson. All these names are there. And they spin and form an African map. People are going to see that.
So tell me just very quickly, people want to get this. Obviously it's being played on radio stations, which we've heard, we know. But where, if you want to download it, where do you go?
It's already on YouTube.
Okay.
iTunes, available.
Lovely.
On Wednesday, the public out there, those who don't have access to iTunes and YouTube, it's going to be available in a form of a CD. There will be this Thank You BC track plus 2 bonus tracks, anti-drug, anti-racism kind of talk. So it's nation-building material. So it will be publicly available there. There's an email that people, in case they need inquiries, it says info@pumelelagroup.com. info@pumelelagroup.com.
Okay, all right, brilliant.
But I think it will be there. From Wednesday, people should stay tuned. We'll make sure the adverts are up, running,
Excellent. Well, listen, congratulations again. There's that video we were talking about and promising for you. It's this SABC, or the song that has been dedicated to the SABC after the announcement of the 90% local content. And of course, this is being played across radio stations, and all musicians performing on here are doing it out of absolute gratitude for this final decision that's been taken after many years of fighting. Zwaki and Buri, thank you. Thanks for being with us once again.
I can never thank you enough. Thanks a billion.
Well, that's your news for now. Kendall Bakamate standing by with your sports news.
It's clearly that we have rewarded players who showed tremendous form throughout the Super Rugby up until now. We have also rewarded some players with the eye of the future, 2019. And also, it's important to make sure that we win against Ireland come June the 11th. So we've got a mixture of experience. We've got young experienced players. We've got really 9 uncapped players in the squad, which augurs well for the future of South African rugby. Without a doubt, I think it's important that the players understand to become a Springbok you have to play from within the boundaries of South Africa in future. But fortunately, SA Rugby have also given me the go-ahead to select from overseas-based players. And if you look at 3 from 54 players, it does send out a strong message.
On Saturday evening, Boks coach Alistair Coetzee announced the names of the Springbok squad to face Ireland in just 2 weeks' time. Besides that, there was a whole lot of other action both on and off the sports field. My name is Kendall Bakamate. You're watching Newsroom, and this is your sports. Joining me to talk about all of this and more is Jody Hendricks. Good morning, Jody, and thank you so much for coming back to Newsroom.
Kendall, always good being here, my man.
Jody, here's a big thing. Probably one of the biggest stories from this weekend was Alistair Coetzee's announcement of his Boks squad. Long awaited, lots of buzz around it. What are your initial thoughts about the Boks squad?
I think it's a good balanced side. I'm a bit worried about the experience. I went through the 31 names that he read out. Only 4 players have played more than 50 tests, and I think you're going to need experience. He spoke about the balance between youth and experience. I'm a bit worried about the experience in the team, but I think it's a good team. A couple of players unlucky. Yeah, I could mention Malcolm Marks, the hooker of the Lions, that's been playing phenomenal rugby at the moment. Then also, I think Howard Mnisi, Nizam Kar, they could count themselves really unlucky, but they were included in the South African A team. There were a couple of selections, Kendall, that made me raise my eyebrows. Nick Groom at scrum off. Francois Hougaard, my understanding is that he will be going to the Olympics, so he wasn't available for selections, but I don't think Nick Groom had a good season at all for the Stormers. And also Francois Lowe coming back from England, and my understanding is that they needed an experienced flanker to replace Kalk Burger, who of course picked up an injury last week against the Bulls.
Can I ask you this, how much of these selections do you think have got to do with Proudfoot finally joining Alistair Coetzee's team, as well as backline coach, the thoughts of Mzonile Stick and who he brought in? How much influence do you think they might have had on these choices?
Well, obviously the selectors, they've also got Peter Jooste, who's the convener of selector. They will be sitting every Monday and they will be giving their input, but the final, I think, say will go to Alistair. I think Matt Proudfoot, Alistair fought hard to get him into the Springbok fray, especially with Johan van Graan there. I think Umzondile Stick was a phenomenal choice. He's an experienced, an exciting young backline coach, and his input will also be of importance. What he will be able, and this is the one thing that I spoke to the previous backline coach about, Ricardo Loubser, a couple of weeks ago, and he said when he came in as an inexperienced coach, he had guys like Jean de Villiers, Brian Abana, who had all played over 50 tests. This time around, Umzondile Stick won't have that, so his input is going to be vital for the way the Springbok backline gets going.
Very interesting. And having a look at the Springbok squad list itself, transformation seems to be definitely looking good for this era.
Very good. 14 of the 31 players are so-called black players. I'm surprised, like I said, there was a couple of guys who I thought could have gotten the nod, Nizam Khan and Audum Nisi, that would have pushed the numbers up. But a very balanced squad. I think Alistair understands the mandate that South African rugby has given him with the targets and with regarding to transformation. And this is a well-represented team out of, I think, every community in South Africa. We could be proud.
And the focus that only 3 of the players actually apply their trade overseas, that the focus is on the home-based players, that speaks volumes of where it is that he's planning to go in the future.
Like I said, only 3 overseas-based players, and they are lucky. I think they gave Dwayne from Yellen the ultimatum to come back from Toulon. Like I said, Francois Louw, my understanding is that he only came in for Skalkberger because they needed an experienced player. And then the young Stephen Kitsoff, who's played under Alistair Coetzee at the Stormers, and I'm sure Alistair knows what he can bring to the team. But I think the door isn't completely closed to overseas-based players. I think Brian Abana could possibly come back. Francois Hougaard, who plays in England, could possibly come back. But I think the core of your team, especially your captain and the majority of your players, you need to reward those players who stay in South Africa.
Very good. Let's look at other news-making headlines of the weekend. The Comrades Marathon, the downhill time, 2 minutes shaved off that time by David Khatebe. Quite interestingly enough, the record was set by a Russian who since is facing doping, a doping scandal. What do you make of that?
Well, first of all, we need to say congratulations to David. Very well done, especially getting the record back for South Africa. Interestingly, you spoke about the Russians. No Russians were allowed or did participate in this year's Comrades Marathon, and that would open up the door for our South African athletes. And we saw even in the women's race, Shanae Bosman beating the defending champion Caroline Holtzman. So I think well done to David and Shanae. It's very good for South African athletics that we can dominate the Comrades again, because for far too long we stood back to the Russians, who now have lots of question marks around them.
I find it very interesting that there are no Ethiopians that run this. There were none in this particular list or in the previous one.
Yeah, the Ethiopians and Kenyans are well known for their long distance athletes, but you know, we can't say what if or why not. What we can say is that South African runners did really well.
Yeah, well done to David Khatebe. I think this is his maiden win in the Comrades. He did win the 2013 Two Oceans, and right now we're looking at visuals of, unfortunately, Wasman now, the winner from last year, being bumped by a motorcycle. Quite a lot is being said about that.
It was action-packed, a lot of drama in the race, and also she cramped up with about 30 kilometers to go. So, you know, funny thing is that she and Shanae Bosman, the lady that won, they've got the same coach, Lindsay Perry, but they've got very different training regimes, because obviously they're two different athletes and their stamina and all those things are very different. But interesting that they have the same coach and they've produced 2 back-to-back winners.
Pretty good stuff. I know Lindsay Perry is also aligned to the HPC outfit at Tuks University. Now, going on to other sporting news, the Nedbank Cup was played over the weekend. SuperSport United against Pirates. A fantastic win for Stuart Baxter and his Chargers. A 3-2 win for them. It seemed as if they were going to run away with it, because right in the first minute they were already going for goal. Pirates were at 6 and 7. They did come back though. What did you make about this match and what SuperSport United is looking like going into next season?
SuperSport is looking like a very good team. If you look at how the league ended, Pirates ended 7th with 41 points and SuperSport was 1 point behind them. So if you look at the league standings, there's very little between the two teams. Obviously you'd think that Pirates, a giant of South African soccer, would be dominating the game, but Stuart Baxter's doing quite well at SuperSport United, and the team Pirates was playing catch-up rugby in the last league game they played against each other a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. Kendall also ended 2-2. So, you know, it would have taken a brave man to say that Pirates was going to be the favourites in this game, but well done to SuperSport United on winning the Nedbank Cup.
And it's fantastic that we get a final and we actually get goals in the final. It's been a long time coming.
And also the fact that it was played at a full Polokwane Stadium, that says a lot for South African rugby, for South African soccer, and especially I'm sure most of them were Pirates fans, and they left the stadium unhappy with SuperSport taking the victory.
Now, a quick one now, looking at football and staying with football. Over the weekend, we also had the UEFA Champions League being played between two teams from Madrid, Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid. And it seemed at one point that the duck would finally be broken, and Atletico Madrid and Diego Simeone would get the Champions League. However, in undécima for Real Madrid.
Well done to Real Madrid, Cristiano Ronaldo leading his team to another Champions League final. I'm a big fan of Diego Simeone, and I really felt sorry for him. The game went into extra time, went to penalties, and that's not the way you want to lose a game, but you need a winner on the day. And, you know, we spoke about Simeone now, but Zinedine Zidane, well done to leading Real Madrid to the UEFA Champions League final and the trophy in his first season in charge of such a talented team.
Apparently Zinedine Zidane, Zizou, got an ultimatum: win the Champions League or you get fired. It clearly worked.
That's soccer for you, European soccer, South African soccer. You know, there's so much pressure on the coaches these days that if you don't win, you basically get the boot. Doesn't matter who you are. I mean, look at Louis van Gaal. He won the FA Cup with United and he was fired the next day. So, but I need to say it was a fantastic game, a very close game. Derbies are always like that. You know, two teams from the same city. A lot of people expected World War III, but unfortunately there had to be a loser, and unfortunately it was Atletico Madrid. But again, well done to Cristiano Ronaldo and Real Madrid.
Now, I do believe that he also joins a very short list of former players who are actually now coaching a side who've won the UEFA Champions League. I think Trezeguet being one of them, as well as Guardiola, and it's pretty good stuff there.
Yeah, Zinedine Zidane, we all knew what he brought to the game as a player. He's still young. If you look in terms of his coaching career, I think it's about 3 or 4 years that he's been coaching now. This is his first major coaching job at a big club. And to win the Champions League in your first season, there are coaches that's coached for 10 years who hasn't done that. So well done to him.
Now, just before we close off on this particular chat, Lewis Hamilton getting a win finally in 2016. It's been a long time coming. He's been really frustrated. He's cut a frustrated figure throughout the entire season. He was beaming yesterday. Bad luck for Ricardo?
Yeah, and you couldn't have done it at a better place. The Monaco Grand Prix, the poster child for Formula One on the Formula One circuit. Well done, but bad luck to his teammate Nico Rosberg, but well done to Lewis Hamilton, and now only 24 points behind his teammate Nico Rosberg. Daniel Ricciardo, you know, after what happened last week in Spain, I'm sure both Lewis and Dave and Nico would have gone to the drawing board and summed up the options, and they came back well. Bad luck for Nico, yeah.
No, Jody, thank you so much. Absolutely. It's turning out to be a really interesting Formula One season this year. But I want to thank you so much for helping us wrap up all the hot moments for the weekend.
Thank you.
All right, now there you had it. Jody Hendricks talking to me about the best of the weekend. Now, let's take a quick look at what people are saying about the story for the weekend in South Africa, really, about the box squad. Uncle Sammy Transformation is here, and Alistair Coetzee is championing it. Springboks Act is demanded by the Minister of Sports, Willem Balula. Lonwabo Miso Coetzee, we've got a mixture of experience and 9 uncapped players in the squad, which bodes well for the future. Definitely seems like a lot of positivity coming out. Judeski, well-deserved box, Faf, Jaco Kriel, Noche, Sia, Whitley, Combring, Bonambi, Riedlinghuis, Skara. Come on, you box. And we've got a comment from Swag. Great to hear that Alistair Coetzee says future Springbok players must play within the borders of South Africa. About time. As you can see, a lot of positivity coming out from everyone about the Springbok squad. I can tell you that both Jody and I are quite excited that we're going to be seeing some very interesting rugby going forward. Now, with that said, that's where we're going to leave it with the sport. We'll take a very short break, I believe, and Evan Janssen is standing by with more news and analysis. You're watching Newsroom.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kendall. Very good morning once again if you've just joined us. Now, recently there was a buzz on social media following the image of a young chemical engineering graduate who took to the streets with a placard in the hopes of getting noticed by a business recruiter. Well, she got lucky. With a tough economic landscape, shrinking job market, global retrenchments and heightened competition, it goes without saying that graduates are battling to find a job anywhere in the world right now. I'm joined from our Pretoria studios this morning by the Senior Branch Manager at Network Recruitment, Marna Thompson. Very good morning to you, Marna. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Evan.
Marna, it's tough out there at the moment, but it's not impossible to get into the job market, is it?
Absolutely not. I think it has to do with the approach that you take. Alarming rate of our unemployment at the moment. about 600,000 graduates without a job. I think that's very alarming for anybody. The fact is, I think you have to consider what is the demand out there in the industry. You have to consider what is the career that is best to follow. So I think there's a lot of pressure on our students when they are at school level to already choose their subjects to embark on a career. So, for instance, if you look at accountants, lawyers, doctors, even engineers, they have some of the lowest unemployment rates in South Africa. Considering a degree in social sciences, even arts and music, the likelihood of finding a position is actually becoming more and more difficult. So I think it would be looking at where is your passion, navigating through that and aligning yourself with what is happening out in the industry and where are you more likely to find a career and find a job and to build your career based on that. If I only look at about 51% of our placements for the last year, the age group was between about 30 and 39 years old. So there is a smaller demand for graduates, but the exciting news is in the recruitment space that we are working in, about 20% more graduates found employment based on last year's figures. So I think that's very exciting.
Do we have enough internships or apprenticeship programs going, and are those programs of a high enough standard?
I definitely think so. I think one of the aspects to consider is obviously to look at not just focusing on some of the largest organizations within the country, because so many graduates come to us trying to get into internships, trying to enter into the job market, and most of them have the notion of only looking at your big well-known brands, big large organizations in South Africa. The smaller to medium-sized enterprises are actually also a nice target market to consider, and some of them are offering internships only on a lower scale. So I think you have to broaden your horizon in terms of expectations where you are going to look for internships, but definitely.
Now, you mentioned a little bit earlier that graduates are battling to get in, and the group that's doing much better is 30 to 39. Is there a scenario that there's lacking within our university structures that maybe our students don't come up prepared to walk straight into the job market?
Yes, I think what needs to happen is obviously the way that you approach the whole job search. Like I said, a lot of companies work on a structure of internal recruitment, teams of internal recruitment specialists, where it's a very automated system where you send your CV to and how you apply for any positions. So I think the discussion should be about what do you do while you're at varsity, while you are studying? How do you prepare yourself to enter in the job market? It's not about long gone are the days that you can just study a degree and hope or that guarantees you a position. I think you have to look at the grades, you have to look at your marks that you're getting in your degree, as well as how are you building your network within a specific industry, within a specific area of specialization. How are you obtaining holiday work? How are you obtaining even volunteer work, sometimes even unpaid volunteer work, just to get the experience, to make the transition between varsity and studying a bit easier to come into the job market.
Now, Marna, I see that junior job requirements have a graduate plus 2 years experience, and that kind of ties in with what you're saying, is that while you're studying or during your spare time, you should really be working part-time to get that experience.
Absolutely, absolutely, because as much as people or employers look at your qualification, look at your skill set, look at your experience, I think there's a whole other discussion about what habits and what characteristics are you bringing to the job market. So for you to give you the best chance possible to step into the job market or to be able to be picked up in the job market is to gain that experience somewhere else, is to go knock on doors, try and gain experience, even if it's just literally over a weekend working in someone's office, to understand the difficulty or the technicality around transitioning the theory into more practical experience and to understand the pressures and understand the challenges in that environment, I would absolutely suggest people, to look at that.
Now, Marna, we've moved from the 4-page CV that was yesterday to the polished up LinkedIn profile that we see today. How has the game changed, and how are employers looking at these different tools?
Well, ultimately, like I said, Eben, it's not just about the skills and the experience that you're bringing to the table. You have to understand, as an employee within a specific firm, everything comes to work, your whole personality, your whole private life. So I would definitely urge people to look at their social reputation, to look at your personal branding. Because from a recruitment perspective, whenever our employers want to hire good candidates or want to hire candidates, that's one of the aspects that we look at. Is we go onto Facebook, you go onto Twitter, you go onto Instagram to see, the people that they surround them with, the activities that they get involved in. So it's absolutely looking at the whole characteristics that you bring to the party. Are you going to be accountable? Are you going to be the person that takes responsibility? Are you going to be the person that's going to go the extra mile? And you're not just in it for yourself, but also for the greater good of the company. So, yes, definitely look at your LinkedIn profile. It has to be professional. It has to be speaking of what it is that you've done during your studies, even the volunteer work, even the extra work that you've done. So I think it's very important to look at that.
So the days of the dodgy semi-naked selfies and those are out. You should avoid those at all costs.
Absolutely, it can do your reputation so much more damage in the long run, from just a nice wild weekend to actually you're not finding a job, you're not able to secure a job because of what people might think of you. So I think that's very important to consider.
Marna, I thank you for joining us. It's certainly a sobering thought to know that everything that you do is monitored and in the public profile out there. Marna says that don't put semi-nude pictures of yourself on any social media site, because after your professional CV and your LinkedIn profile, maybe that's the next port of call for all employers. So, better to stand at the traffic light with a sign that says, I'm qualified, and please give me a job. It works. There you have that picture, iconic picture here in South Africa. We can report that this lovely lady, I think she was approached by Sasol, if I remember correctly. She was by Sasol, and now she's doing an internship program, I'm sure, with them. What a wonderful story. So don't put naked pictures of yourself. All social media platforms are broadcast platforms. So you're broadcasting your own brand to the world, and that's maybe not what you want to do. Let's change gears now. As we draw closer to the end of Africa Month, Arts and Culture Minister Nathi Mthethwa has emphasized the importance of celebrating African heritage as well as our history. Speaking at TNA's breakfast briefing on SABC News this morning, the minister went on to say that there are plans to introduce South African history as a compulsory subject in schools.
The issue of heritage, what you need is 90%. It's 90%. In fact, even 100% to everything. You know, the breaking of the ground is this is what people always say. You have good policies as government. Where we're found lacking is on the implementers and implementation. So we need implementers who listen, like SABC is listening under COO Msweneng. We need that. People are not going to understand, have respect of themselves if they don't know themselves and they don't know who they are. And that is why a typical South African would know about Adolf Hitler or Mussolini more than Jomo Kenyatta. Because the history people are taught is that one of inferior. That when in the Eastern Frontier Wars, those wars broke out, you were told Amaxhosa were defeated and fled. And if the same thing happens in Isandlwana, we are told, no, Chelmsford army retreated strategically. And this is what makes people believe that you cannot do anything. So therefore, it's because of that that we are at an advanced stage with the Department of Education to make history, our history, compulsory in schools, so that our people understand who they are. They will question us when we say, you must be proud of who you are, you must be an African and so on, because they see everything but African. On radio, they listen music outside of the continent, on television and print media and so on. So we are changing the game by emphasizing that if we have those who are running, Minister Mtambi, Minister Mutsecha, and everybody else, all of us, our officials should just run and implement the program. And things are going to change. One day you wake up, 90% is there.
Meanwhile, the Nigerian playwright and poet Professor Wole Soyinka says government should give artists support like they do to soccer and rugby players. He spoke at the same TNA Business Breakfast, saying that this will help to unite our communities.
I find myself very often a little bit concerned about the concept which many people have about what art and culture are. Many people, for instance, and I speak partisanly, many people think that soccer is all there is, or sports, all there is to arts and culture. And I'm at great pains to say that if governments just devote about a fraction of what they spend on sports. I'm saying this in South Africa, and I know that South Africans are crazy about sport. I can't help that. But I always tell some of our moneyed people, for instance, that if they just give the arts just a fraction of what is expend on games, sports, etc., that the artists themselves, the real producers of art, just by functioning with sufficient support in their field, which is their main occupation anyway, they'd be astonished how communities are built right across nations, even without the intervention of governments. Just recognition of the fact that the arts are not a poor sibling of the leisure occupations of any society. The arts are not foundlings at whom the leftovers of soccer funding should be thrown, or rugby for that matter, since I'm in South Africa. I think that the artists themselves, by creating communities across, which exist right now, but by strengthening those communities, they'll find that the kind of passages across peoples on the continent would have been, established.
An interesting concept. What do you think? Sport, does it help to unite or divide us? Interesting thing to think about. Let's move on and take a look at the newspapers from around the African continent today. We'll start in Zimbabwe. The Chronicle reports that the Minister of Rural Development, Preservation of Culture and Heritage, Aveniko Ngube, and Chief Nyangazonke have clashed over the presence of Peter Cunningham, a white commercial farmer, at the disputed Maleme farm in Matobo district. Then, moving to Nigeria, the Daily Trust says President Muhammadu Buhari has appealed to Nigerians to support the administration's efforts towards fixing the nation. Finally, in Swaziland, the Swaziland Observer reports that meeting by the Swaziland National Association of Teachers remains in limbo today. Well, that's the news from around the continent right now. Time for us to take a look at the weather once again with Aswi.
Thanks very much and warm welcome. Let's take a look at your weather details. Starting off with Southern Africa, where we're seeing a high pressure system sitting over the interior of South Africa. Some onshore flow wind due to that high pressure system, resulting to partly cloudy skies over the interior of Mozambique with 30% chance of showers along the coastal regions of Mozambique and the central interior. Over South Africa, it will be clear, Botswana, Zimbabwe and most parts of Namibia for today. Tomorrow, we're still expecting similar conditions. That high pressure system continue to sit over the northern parts of South Africa. Towards the western parts, we have a cold front making its way, bringing in partly cloudy skies with 30 and 60% chance of showers on Wednesday. But tomorrow, it will remain partly cloudy over the Western Cape to clear skies over the interior of South Africa, and along the coastal regions of Mozambique will receive 30% chance of showers, but most parts of SADC will be partly cloudy to clear skies. Temperatures will reach a maximum of 22 over Pretoria with sunny skies for today, and 20 over Bloemfontein, 18 over Cape Town with partly cloudy skies. If you will be in Lusaka, do expect a maximum of 24 degrees. Towards the central interior, we're still seeing 30% chance of showers over most parts, but 60 over Addis Ababa, Kampala, covered by 30% chance of showers. Otherwise, partly cloudy skies to clear skies over most parts of the central interior for today. Tomorrow, we're still seeing 30% chance of showers situated over the northern parts with Bangui covered by 30% chance of showers, and Yaoundé, Addis Ababa still covered by 30 to 60% chance of showers. Otherwise, partly cloudy skies over most parts of the central interior for tomorrow. Kampala will reach a maximum of 23 degrees with 30% chance of showers, and 24 over Addis Ababa, just partly cloudy skies. Along the coastal regions, we're just seeing partly cloudy skies with hot temperatures in the low 30s. Towards Kinshasa, we're seeing partly cloudy skies with no rain forecast. Yaoundé covered by drizzle with a maximum of 26 degrees and 30 over Bangui. Moving towards the Middle East, we're still seeing partly cloudy skies to clear skies over the interior. Sana'a covered by 30% chance of showers for today. Otherwise, just partly cloudy skies over most parts of the Sahara Desert. Tomorrow, we're still expecting similar conditions. Clear skies over Cairo, Damascus and Baghdad. No rain is forecast over most parts of these regions for tomorrow. Just seeing hot temperatures for today with a maximum of 40 over Al Jof and Tripoli at a maximum of 28 degrees with partly cloudy skies. 31 if you will be in Damascus for today. Do expect sunny skies over those regions. Mika at a maximum of 41 degrees and 30 over Sana'a. If you will be in Khartoum, do expect a maximum of 41 degrees. Towards the coastal regions, we're seeing Lagos covered by 30% chance of showers, but over the interior of Nigeria, continuing with 30% chance of showers. Abidjan covered by 30 to 60% chance of showers, and something heavy is forecast over those regions. Otherwise, just partly cloudy skies to clear skies over the northern parts of Africa. That is all from the weather desk. Stay tuned.
News Today keeps you informed with news locally and around the world.
When Judge John Hlophe challenged the Supreme Court of Appeal when it sent the matter back and said that there must be an inquiry set up.
We unpack business news.
There's an increase in general inflation in the country.
We give you up-to-date news of the day.
The drugs were seized at several locations in Sydney, including a shipping container sent from Hong Kong. Police say it's the largest haul of illicit drugs in 2 years.
We round up sports news.
Kosatsa, tell me about the legacy that you would like to build and be remembered for.
Trying to get my foundation running, which is going to focus on, all the sport, doesn't matter disability or able body. So, I'm passionate about sports.
Stay informed every Monday to Friday from 3 to 5:30 p.m. CAT. SABC News.
We're heading to a future of cars that will drive themselves, and a place where robots will be doing some of our chores. But the challenge in Africa is to make sure that everyone is part of this new world.
To be behind with technology, it is a challenge for us as offenders.
There are many initiatives to ensure that Africans are truly connected.
We're now giving more access and internet to
now the end users.
On Network, we have information on Africa's technology landscape, possibilities for the future, and some great African innovations. That's Network with me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time.
How does this extreme heat affect basic conditions of living?
Food spoils more readily, and the risk of food poisoning outbreaks or food poisoning in a household.
Should we experience another heat wave soon, and it's coming?
First sign is always thirst. Thirst is a sign that already your body started to be dehydrated, and that's a very early sign that most people will be able to sort of pay attention to and then act on. That doesn't warrant any serious medical attention. But the minute that you start to feel slightly nauseous, that you start to feel dizzy, that's a sign that you need to stop what you're doing, get out of the sun, get into a cool area, slow down your intensity, get hydrated, cool down.
Join Dr. Sello Mutawung every Saturday from 9 till 10 in the morning.
It's Monday, the 30th of May, 2016. This is Newsroom on SABC News, Channel 404. If you've just joined us, Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome as we broadcast live from Auckland Park Studios here in Johannesburg to the rest of the African continent. I'm Elvis Preston. I'll be with you until 12 o'clock. As you know, we're also streaming live on YouTube. The entire show is available on our YouTube channel. Today, we focus on the landmark ruling by the High Court to suspend the 5-kilometer radius admission system here in Gauteng. So the question we ask you today, should schools be open to all nationwide, irrespective of where you live? So let me know what's on your mind on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on the Facebook page. But first, let's take a look at all your headlines. Motorists will have to dig deep into their pockets with fuel prices set to go up drastically from Wednesday. The African National Congress in Gauteng expresses confidence of filling the FNB Stadium for its provincial election manifesto launch this coming weekend. And the South African Communist Party praises the public broadcaster for banning visuals showing violent protest. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front.
Good morning, Elvis. Now, very interesting sporting bulletin we've got today, because quite a lot happened on the weekend. In fact, if you stay glued to your TV set, you'll be glad that I'm bringing you some of the other things you didn't get to see. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the sports bulletin today.
This is it, the final few metres. He's running under our noses at Sahara Stadium, Kingsmead. David Khatebe, South African, smashes the Comrades record of 5:18.
David Khatebe wins his first Comrades Marathon, shattering a 9-year-old record for the down race by 2 minutes and 30 seconds. All this as the University of Pretoria start their desperate campaign to stay in the Premier Soccer League on the back foot, as they lose 1-0 at home to Mbombela United.
He survived everything that's been thrown at him here today. And Lewis Hamilton takes his first win of 2016. Hamilton wins in Monaco for his 44th career victory.
Defending champion Lewis Hamilton secures his first win of his 2016 Formula One season in the dramatic, crash-filled Monaco Grand Prix.
Has to settle for second place after a hard-driven event. And Sergio Perez takes a brilliant...
Now, all this and more we've got for you in the sports bulletin in about half an hour or so. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. He will be back with more a little bit later, so you'll have to stay tuned. Now, we opened the bulletin with some very distressing news for you as a motorist. The price of petrol will go up by 52 cents a litre to 13 Rand 26 cents a litre, and diesel will increase by 76 cents a litre to 11 Rand 52 cents a litre from Wednesday. Now, in a statement released by the Energy Department, the weakening of the rand against the US dollar contributed to the fuel price increase. The price of illuminating paraffin will go up by 83 cents a litre. Now, economists have warned that the increase in the price of petrol is going to put distressed consumers under renewed pressure. Meanwhile, the African National Congress in Gauteng says it's on track to fill up the 94,000-seater FNB Stadium on Saturday. The party will launch its provincial manifesto at what it promises will be the ANC's biggest rally this year.
This Saturday, all roads lead to FNB Stadium. Well, that's according to the ANC in Gauteng, which wants to fill up the biggest stadium in the country.
We have concluded our list processes, which often divide a lot of our members. Now we are focusing on the campaign, and you will see the first message we are sending: FNB Stadium will be full.
Yes. It's a mammoth task these volunteers are entrusted with, but the door-to-door mobilization hasn't been a walk in the park.
Where we have made mistakes, we ourselves would like to work with the people of our province and our cities here in the province to fix those problems.
With opposition parties eyeing the city of Tshwane, the ANC in Gauteng says on August the 3rd it will retain all municipalities in the province and win back Midvaal. Aldrin Simpier, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The South African Communist Party has praised the SABC's decision to ban visuals showing destructive service delivery protest. The party's provincial secretary made the comments on the sidelines of the launch of its election program to support the ANC.
Rallying the Communist Party faithful to back the African National Congress in the local government elections. The recent announcement by the SABC that it would not show destruction during protests drew praise from the party.
I'm very much pleased that the SABC already has taken a stand that it will not, cover protests where destruction of property is involved. Now, I've heard people saying this amount to censorship, it amounts to, tampering with freedom of expression. I've noted and heard all of those. I will not enter into whether they are right or wrong, onto merits or demerits of that. What I commend the SABC for is they've taken a stand against destruction of public property.
And a swipe against those using the Nkandla saga to criticize the ANC.
There was something there called collusion on price. So what happened in Nkandla, whilst we tend to look at it in isolation, we can't resolve the problems that manifested themselves in Nkandla outside dealing with the entire practice of manipulating costs, manipulating scope in construction project management.
While the SACP leadership here has been resolute in its call for members to support the ANC in the upcoming local government elections, leaders have been quick to admit that Gauteng remains a problem province. The SACP says it is already deploying party members to canvass support for the ANC. Dumalo Mohlaudi, SABC News, Boksburg.
Meanwhile, the Western Cape Premier Helen Zille was in Pretoria this weekend to support the DA mayoral candidate for the Tshwane Metro, Solim Simanga, in the upcoming local government elections. The DA, which has the Cape Town Metro under its wing, is targeting Tshwane as well as Johannesburg and the Nelson Mandela metros. The township vote is crucial for its success.
A door-to-door campaign to garner that all-important vote. The DA says communities can stay as they are for life or vote for change. It says every city can be as clean as Cape Town.
Local government is about clean running water. Local government is about proper sewerage. Local government is about roads and electricity and decent community safety, all of those things. And if you come to a place like Itireleng, you see what failed local government looks like.
The party's mayoral candidate says given the chance, he'll give meaning to the words for derailing residents.
This is one of the townships that year in, year out, you hear the mayor talking about coming to fix this area here, but you have seen for yourself the kind of condition that we find here.
The DA believes both Tshwane and the Nelson Mandela metros are within its grasp.
EFF leader Julius Malema says he wants to rid all municipalities in the country of corruption. Now, this was his message to EFF supporters in Pietermaritzburg and Durban, where he wrapped up his three-day election manifesto campaign in KwaZulu-Natal.
Malema received a warm welcome. The party will be contesting the local government election for the first time, and it hoped to build on the inroads it made in KZN during the 2014 national elections. In his address, Malema said the EFF won't tolerate corruption and nepotism. He urged the electorate to vote for the EFF, as he wants to change the political landscape in all municipalities.
You have no dignity without a flushing toilet. The reason we are crying for a flushing toilet is because we want to restore your dignity. You cannot build a house after 1994 without a flushing toilet.
He also urged candidates for the local government election to humble themselves and serve the citizen of the country.
We don't want to give you food passes. We want to give you a job so that you can buy your own food and the food of your choice.
Malema's last stop was at Umlazi. He called on the community in the area to vote for his party. Londi Khatebe, SABC News, Durban.
Rescue teams at Impala Platinum Mine in Rustenburg have worked throughout the weekend, searching for a missing miner, Moses Mamohwa, without any success. Mamohwa has been trapped underground for 14 days now. He was trapped together with a colleague who was found dead. Mine management says chances of finding the missing man alive at this stage are slim. The two miners were trapped during a rockfall almost 2 weeks ago. The Impala Mine management says Mamohwa's family has been taken for counselling at the mine. Now, news just in. Sentencing proceedings in the case of the woman who's been convicted of kidnapping Zephany Nurse 19 years ago has been postponed in the Western Cape High Court until August. The 51-year-old Lavender Hill woman was found guilty on 3 charges: kidnapping, fraud and contravening sections of the Children's Act.
It's a case that has drawn international attention. A baby snatched at birth from hospital and reunited with her biological parents after 17 years. Zephany was raised in Lavender Hill, a stone's throw away from where her biological parents lived. Last year, the nurse's younger daughter started school at the same institution where Zephany was doing matric. Their striking resemblance the first clues that led to a drama-filled trial. Western Cape Judge President John Klope found that she had deceived everyone, including her husband, for almost 18 years. Shortly before her conviction, the woman told SABC News she regrets not telling the truth sooner.
I'm very happy that load is also off my shoulders because it was hindering me for years. Who's a mom, who's a dad. And at this moment, I'm very happy she found him. But it's just the pity she have to find out that we lost here. It should have come from me.
Her husband has pledged to continue supporting his wife.
I am standing with her all the way through this, and I will always be there for her. Whatever the outcome may be, I will be there for her and my daughter.
A court order prevents the media from identifying Zephany. The teenager will now testify for the state during sentencing procedures. The convicted kidnapper is currently behind bars. Berenice Moss, SABC News, Cape Town.
14 suspects arrested in connection with countrywide social grant fraud are expected to appear in the Bellville Magistrates Court today. The syndicate is believed to have defrauded the Social Security Agency, or SASSA, of an estimated 34 million rand nationally. 8 SASSA officials from Tlokwe in the northwest and Krugersdorp in Gauteng were arrested last week as well as 6 members of the public in Cape Town. Western Cape Minister for Social Development says they are excited and they applaud SASSA, the police and the Integrity Committee that exists within SASSA for their investigation. NGO Save the Children SA says that many young South Africans have experienced sexual, physical and emotional abuse or have been exposed to high rates of violence by the time they are 15. The NGO says that children who have been abused are likely to develop mental and physical health problems. This as South Africa is marking Child Protection Week, which started yesterday. Celebrated under the theme, "Let us all protect children to move South Africa forward," the Social Development Minister, Bathabile Dlamini, launched Child Protection Week yesterday in the Northwest Province. A recent UBS Optimus study on child safety shows that girls bear the brunt of abuse, neglect or bullying, while boys are more likely to experience other forms of violence. The NGO says that children who have been abused are likely to develop mental and physical health problems. Now that's where we've got to leave it for now for your news. We'll be back right after that. Evan will take you further. Stay tuned.
What's wrong with Triple M? What is illegal here? Who is being defrauded here, Trevor?
It is about the best interest of the citizens of this country.
But the citizens are the ones who are playing, who are members or participants in this. If you put in 15,000 rand, after 12 months you get 1.2 million rands. I mean, who wouldn't go for this?
Watch Question Time with me, Mpho Tsedu, Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m. on the SABC News Channel.
Welcome back. Time for us to have a more regional look at the news here on SABC News. Now, provision of services, including schooling and business operations, are still at a halt in Vuwani and surrounding villages outside of Thohoyandou in Limpopo. The month-long protest action has seen schooling suspended as residents do not want the areas to be included into a new municipality in the Vhembe region. More than 30 schools have been torched and vandalized by the protesters. For the latest, we are joined by our very own Philip van der Walt. Very good morning to you, Philip. I know you're about to talk to the community there, but just set the scene for us first.
Even this morning, things have not changed much in the area. The schools are still closed. The 270 temporary classrooms that were erected are empty. Children are seen walking around in the streets in their civilian clothes and not in their school clothes. There are still gravel roads, especially the roads next to the main roads, that are barricaded with rocks and with tree trunks and things, as you can see behind me. And it makes it very difficult for normal traffic to flow in the area. And then essential services like health clinics, etc., are not operating. People are shutting down the area, demanding whatever they have asked for in the High Court, and also prior that they do not want to be included into one municipality, which will also have Malumulele in it. I have with me today a community leader who has been speaking to King Ramabulana over the weekend on the issue, and he can tell us more about what was discussed and what was decided.
Thank you, presenter. Indeed, over the weekend, we met with the King, Tony Ramabulana, the senior traditional leaders, and all the structures of one which are affected by the decision of the demarcations board. And there, the King indicated that the life which is being lived in Vuwani is not pleasing, especially to him. He wants stability. He wants people to go to work. He wants schools to resume and all that which have been affected. But us, as the community leaders, we indicated that also we want stability. But you will remember in Vuwani we have set a precedent whereby we are unable to suspend or to call off a shutdown if there are people who are still in custody being denied bail. So that is one of the reasons which is delaying also the process to call off the shutdown. And furthermore, we indicated that there is police brutality taking place, especially in the targeted area of Feyeboom, where they've broken the houses, they have injured the people in the process, which we are surprised that instead of being law enforcers, they've become the laws themselves. So those are the issues, the primary issues that we have indicated to the king, that should these issues be resolved, you will see the Vuwani area being stabilized. We are the people who cause this instability. We are also the responsible people to stabilize the area. But firstly, these issues must be resolved. And that is our position, which the king also agreed to us, that he will grant the process of the court to take place, but also ensuring ensuring that he will look onto the issue of police brutality, because that is not allowed in South Africa.
In the meantime, there are still 6 people in custody who are appearing in the magistrate court at Thohoyandou, and 18 people who have appeared a number of times, and also for bail application in the court at Malumulele. The Malumulele group will hear their fate on Friday.
Philip van der Walt, coming to you from Vuwani. You've just heard the very latest there from the community. They say that the shutdown in their minds will continue until their demands are met. Moving on, the Bagubung Barateo community in Lediga near Sun City in the northwest have a new chief. The inauguration ceremony for Chief Solomon Monakgotla, held over the weekend, was not without controversy. The event was preceded by a court battle last week. A group opposing Chief Solomon Monakgotla disputed his crowning and took the matter to the Northwest High Court, but their application was dismissed.
Pomp and ceremony, the order of the day. Kgosi Solomon Monakgotla was today cloaked in a leopard skin, the customary way of crowning the rightful heir. But the court challenge on Thursday nearly put a spanner in the works. The family is still trying to resolve its differences.
We represented the tribe well, and we hope it is a lesson to the tribe, if you listen to the speeches, that we cannot deviate from our customs and traditions, and this is what we're emphasizing today.
Government says it was only enforcing the will of the community.
After they have really identified who the rightful Kgosi is, we then issue a certificate, and the ceremony of inauguration is being arranged, and Rona as government will then come in.
The House of Traditional Leaders in the province says challenges will be dealt with.
Of course, there are still a lot of challenges, but I think there's a lot of energy in the leadership of this village, because they've reached this stage where Kgosi has been inaugurated. The
Bagubung Barateo community now has a new chief, Solomon Monakgotla. Solofelo Matibedi, SABC News, Lidach near Sun City.
Now, according to the UN World Tourism Organization, Sub-Saharan Africa is experiencing the second highest tourism growth in the world, with 6% annual growth rate. An influx of tourists and domestic travelers seeking sex with children is now being reported elsewhere in the region as well. Children's vulnerability is rising with the emergence of new online unregulated modes of accommodation and transportation. Research in Ethiopia, Mauritania and Niger showed that some child brides are sold by husbands into the sex trade, while those who run away from abusive marriages often end up working as prostitutes due to rejection by families and society. Now joining us in studio is Catherine Mbenge, who is the African coordinator at ECPAT ECPAT International. Very good morning to you, Catherine. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
The scope of exploitation, sexual and otherwise, on the continent right now, what does it look like?
Many of our colleagues working on the ground, child protection organization, have warned for many years now that sexual exploitation of children in travel and tourism is expanding in Africa. But we didn't have solid data to inform us on the scope and also to educate action and solutions. So the global studies, which has been launched 2 weeks ago on the 12th of May, both here in South Africa, in Washington and in Bangkok, came out of the need to really substantiate this observation that the child protection community was observing on the ground. So what does the study tell us? We are in the more and more interconnected world. You rightly just mentioned the rise of travel and tourism in Africa, so I'm not going to repeat this. For sure, our continent is not spared from the move of the travelers, but as the travelers and tourists move, unfortunately, predators are also on the move.
Yeah.
And they reach everywhere. They reach the most remote areas of our villages. And as they move, unfortunately, our children become more and more vulnerable to the criminal acts.
How involved are the governments in sub-Saharan Africa? How involved are they and partners in promoting policies to protect young women and children from the types of exploitation that we see?
Many of our governments have done a lot in terms of putting in place child protection system, child protection laws. Of course, these could be adapted, these could be improved. But unfortunately, we have a problem of enforcement of the law. We have also a problem of the fact that even if we have good law, sometimes the predators can use loopholes that we have in our laws because they're not enforced, or simply because they come with cash.
Yeah.
They come with money. They access our children, victims.
Yeah.
They can lure them. They can lure the families. And then when they do that, because they have power of money, they can also elude and evade justice. So this is also one of a problem that we have, that robust law sometimes exist, sometimes they don't fully address the emerging trends, so we need to adapt them.
Yeah.
But even those which exist, which are good, unfortunately, enforcement is not commensurate to the needs.
These predators that are coming from elsewhere in the world into the African continent, where are they coming from mostly, and what should people be on the lookout for?
We have to dispel the myth that predators are only coming from abroad. This may have been true years ago, but things have changed. Domestic travelers, inter-regional travelers, in-country travelers are unfortunately also among the predators. And they look like you and me. They're not different. We just have to be aware that people walking around in our community could be the predators. That's why awareness is very important. that our community should know, that our civil society, the media has a very important role to play. Don't look away.
Yeah.
If you look at you see something which is suspicious in the community around you, please look for that and call. There are child line, for instance, Child Welfare South Africa.
Here in South Africa, we see Child Protection Week has just been launched by our government, and it's an annual process. Is this kind of initiative enough? Do we need to see more being done?
We need to, first of all, we need to apply what is there. South Africa last year put in place a very important law about traveling with minor, which is
the birth certificate.
Absolutely. I think this is an extraordinary example for the rest of the country in our sub-region. We wish many countries could do so. From what we know, we only have 2 countries in the world, South Africa and Costa Rica, who have a law.
Unfortunately, South Africa got a lot of criticism from the travel industry because of this, and we have to almost revisit these policies. It's nice to hear it from somebody else who says what great policies these are, and what they're really meant to do is to protect women and children.
One of the things that we need to say is that tourism is good for Africa. If tourism is used really to bring economic development, but that needs to go with an impact assessment for child rights. What does it mean for child rights? Do people come and exploit our children because they are bringing money into our country? No, we have to balance these two.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for joining us today. Catherine Mbenge is the African coordinator at ECPAT International. We're dealing, of course, with, well, how travel and tourism is changing, and what does it mean for the exploitation of our young people here in sub-Saharan Africa. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, time now for us to take a short commercial break. Here on SABC News, we'll be back with sport right after this.
There are no permanent enemies or friends in politics.
I agree with Professor Siete fully.
Do people still preserve the meaning?
They have no clue what it meant to be black under apartheid.
Acting Police Commissioner Phahlane dropped a bombshell in Parliament this week when he suggested there could be a possible cover-up. What do you think of this story? What kind of problems were those, Vuyo, if I can just get in there quickly?
Every corner or sphere of our lives has become a site of struggle.
Watch Media Monitor with me, Alicia Jali, Sundays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News channel.
Good morning, welcome back. I'm Kendall Makamati. I've got your sports on Newsroom. Our top story for this bulletin is about tennis, where a couple of top pairings exited the women's doubles at the French Open on Sunday. Martina Hingis and Sanya Mirza's bid for a 4th consecutive Grand Slam title ended, and the Williams sisters, Serena and Venus, lost their 2nd match of the day.
Serena and Venus Williams own 13th Grand Slam titles, but were competing in doubles together at a major tournament for the first time since 2014. They started by wrapping up a 7-6, 4-6, 6-love victory in a second-round match that was suspended on Saturday. Then, they had to return to court for the 3rd round and lost 6-3, 6-3 to Kiki Bertens and Johanna Lassen. But in the singles, the Williams are both in the quarterfinals, where the number 1 seed Serena will take on Elina Svitolina, and Venus will be up against Timea Baksinski.
I want to continue to play well, and each player is going to get better each round naturally, so I can't take anything for granted.
It's dark. It has been suspended.
Meanwhile, Novak Djokovic wants lights to be installed at the French Open. The world number 1 was scheduled 4th on court on a rain-interrupted Saturday. The French Open is the only Grand Slam without a roof and the tournament has been delayed numerous times last week because of inclement weather.
So unfortunately, the rain is still falling here.
The Sep beat Al Jazbedin in the fourth round match just before play was stopped because of darkness.
Late call, but it is long.
It was getting dark, and I just hope that soon in Roland Garros we'll at least have lights, because at least in the center court and Suzanne Le Glen, I mean, Grand Slam, you need to have lights. So I'm really hoping that we can have that very soon for these particular situations, especially considering the fact that forecast for weather is not that great in the following days. So it's not good for anybody, waiting the whole day for players, for fans, for tournament organizers. So I'm just hoping that things will go well in the future.
The French Open does not have night sessions. Mtutuzi Ndlovu, SABC News.
And the heroics for Djokovic. Appreciative of the crowd sticking around.
Meanwhile, the 2016 Comrades Marathon will be remembered as one of the most spectacular and dramatic races in recent times. South African winner David Radebe smashed the down record from Pietermaritzburg to Durban, while Shane Bosman won a highly emotional women's race.
The first 60 kilometers of the men's race saw the usual jostling for positions, and with about 25 kilometers to the finish line, Radebe made his move. It looked like he went too fast too soon, but the 2013 Two Oceans winner had his tactics spot on and was determined to break the record. Russian Leonid Svetsov held the previous record at 5 hours 20 minutes and 49 seconds. Radebe won the race in 5 hours 18 minutes and 19 seconds, which translates to an average of 3.5 minutes per kilometer. His prize money for winning, breaking the record and being the first South African over the line is well over R1 million.
Still foot enough to do push-ups after.
I'm feel happy because I breaking the record of the Russia. Today is in South Africa record. I'm feeling good.
The women's race didn't deliver record-breaking times, but summed up the joy, heartbreak and courage of the comrades. Defending champion Caroline Wustman looked in supreme form until the last few kilometers of the race. She had a lead of over 10 minutes, but her legs started to give in. And an incident with a motorcycle just compounded her problems. She kept battling on, but Bosman hauled her in with just a few kilometers left. Bosman ran the race of her life, and after many disappointments in road races, she finally claimed her first ever ultra-marathon. She won in 6 hours, 25 minutes and 55 seconds.
Shane is not one that smiles that often, but a huge smile here from Shane Bosman, Helen, and a great moment for her.
I was just running my own race, and at the next moment, with 5 Ks to go, I could see the leading car. And I just said to myself, this is your chance, you need to run very hard now.
She's showing strength and determination as she finishes this race.
Wustman battled to the end and finished second. She received a tremendous ovation as she crossed the finish line.
She's seeing the humor in this as well as she wobbles her way across the finish line, but laughing, a big smile on her face and congratulating Shane Bosman. And that is the Caroline Wustman we know as she collapses onto the ground.
And although she could barely walk, the smile on her face showed the whole world what the spirit of the comrades is about. Harry Olivier, SABC News.
Now to soccer news, when Mbombela United beat the University of Pretoria 1-0 in the second playoff match in Pretoria yesterday. On Wednesday afternoon, United lost 3-0 at home to Highlands Park in the first match of the relegation promotion playoffs.
Mbombela United came into this match knowing that they needed to win in order to keep their hopes of promotion alive. But Tuks were also eager to retain their ABSA Premiership status. Neither team's defense were giving anything away at the back. As a result, the players were forced to attack from a distance. That was before Mxolisi Kumete opened the scoreboard 4 minutes before half-time. Early in the second half, United were camping in Tuks' half, searching for another goal, but in vain. On the other end, Sean Bartlett's men hit the woodwork and they failed to utilize the loose ball to their advantage. Bartlett was worried as United piled on more pressure. However, the men from Nelspruit were not taking their chances. And 10 minutes from time, Mkolisi Mayongo received a red card for pulling back Ketane Kebete. But Tingwenya were not to be hard done by the red card, as they had a chance to extend their lead from a penalty spot. Victor Shongwe stepped up but failed to convert. Highlands Park will host the University of Pretoria in the next playoffs match on the 11th of next month. Mtutuzi Ndlovu, SABC News.
Tell you what, Ducks need to be careful of these results because everybody can ask Morocco Swallows what it's like to go down to the NFD. Now, 22-year-old Jordan Spieth displayed a brilliant short game, even by his own very high standards, to win the Dean and DeLuca Invitational by 3 strokes in Fort Worth, Texas. Posting his 8th victory on the PGA Tour and his first in his home state, he passed Tiger Woods' mark of 7 tour-event wins by the same age. Spieth reached the mark in emphatic fashion with a closing 65 to finish at 17 under par 263 at Colonial Country Club. He curled in a 20-foot birdie putt at the 16th hole and went even better by chipping in from 40 feet for another birdie at the 17th. With victory assured, he knocked in a 35-foot birdie putt for good measure at the final hole. Now, while all this was going on, in England, Chris Wood won the BMW PGA Championship held at the Wentworth Club in Surrey. Wood shot a final round of 69 to finish on 9 under par, 1 shot clear of second place Richard Karlberg. Thomas Aiken, South Africa's best finish at the tournament, finished tied for 4th, 3 shots behind. Now, also headlining our sports bulletin for today, it's about the Formula 1 Grand Prix where Lewis Hamilton took a superb victory in a close battle with Red Bull's Daniel Ricciardo in a thrilling Monaco Grand Prix to reignite his title campaign. Hamilton's first win this year cut his deficit to Mercedes teammate Nico Rosberg, who finished 7th to 24 points. The world champion benefited from a slow pit stop for Ricciardo, but also from his own brave call to delay a tyre change on a drying track until he could go straight to slick tyres. He then had to defend from Ricciardo for 45 laps to win. Let's take a quick look at the race highlights.
The race will start behind the safety car. They move away on the formation lap, all on the extreme wet tyres. They're obliged to use those in these conditions if the safety car is going to lead them round at the start of the race. He's done 1 quick lap on the intermediates, but it's now time for him to switch onto the slicks. Now, what's
Yes, I think it is.
And they're late! Oh, can you believe it?
They changed, they had a set of softs out there and they've gone and they've changed to the Ultra.
And Lewis Hamilton takes his first win of 2016. Hamilton wins in Monaco for his 44th career victory. And the drought has ended. At last, he has taken a win this year.
Now let's have a quick look at a picture that comes from the Minister of Sport, Fikile Mbalula, and it says Gatebe's time 5 hours 18 minutes 0.12 seconds. Ludwig Mamabolo finished 2nd with Bong Musa Mtembu 3rd. Hashtag Comrades 2016 South Africa is proud. Now we should be also looking quickly at the question of the day. We asked you, should schools be open to all nationwide irrespective of where you live? A quick look at what you've got to say about that is exactly behind me right now. Unati Grootboom. Yes, they must be open to everyone. This is South Africa. Every school belongs to the people of this country here. And that's where we're going to leave it for the sport. Now hand over to Elvis President, who's standing by with Dr. Martin. Very interesting slot.
Thank you, Kendall. Now, it was a busy week with the ANC's top brass meeting in Pretoria this weekend to choose the ruling party's list of mayoral and councillor candidates for the August the 3rd municipal polls. Clashes erupted between EFF and ANC supporters at the EFF gathering in Richards Bay. The Department of Basic Education says if the disruption of schooling continues in Vuwani and surrounding villages in Limpopo, it will not be able to implement recovery programs. Then we also found the National Assembly passed the expropriation bill with objections from 4 opposition parties. The National Prosecuting Authority dismissed reports that they plan to arrest the Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan. And of course, the Sunday papers had a different story to tell. And a court date, June the 10th, has been set for the application for leave to appeal a High Court ruling that corruption charges against President Jacob Zuma should be reinstated. And finally, cartoonist Jonathan Shapiro, known as Zapiro, says that he will review his drawings following a backlash over a cartoon in which he depicts the NPA head, Sean Abrams, as a monkey playing a wind-up organ dancing on a leash held by the President, Jacob Zuma. That was a very busy week, and our social commentator, Dr. Leonard Martin, is in studio to take us through the week that passed and some of the major stories that unfolded. Doctor, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Elvis, and good morning to the viewers.
Now, the ANC's list of mayoral and councillor candidates for the August 3rd municipal elections, or the polls, was decided this week. Is this perhaps an effort to make sure that there is transparency in this process?
I think the process is partly that, but it's also a process to actually manage the actual development of the lists and the consequences of the lists. I mean, as we now know, the lists also reflect a type of development of upward social mobility. Hence the tensions that go along with the list. So it's really a mechanism of management control of this process. Councillors have increasingly come to see becoming a councillor as that of a process of upward mobility.
Now, local government is around the corner and everybody's looking forward to it, but already we are seeing tensions on the ground and clashes between political parties, the EFF and the ANC this weekend past in Richards Bay. Is that perhaps the things that we can expect in the run-up to the election? Are these normal tensions?
Well, I think it cannot be normal. There's a lot at stake in this election. And I think we should expect the tension to become exacerbated. Hopefully, it will be maintained within the parameters of a peaceful election, but there's a lot at stake in this election. We are actually in the process of a political transition in terms of the previous status quo as far as party representation is concerned. And this is the cold face, really, hence the tensions.
Are we seeing other parties doing the same? We've seen a number of parties, the DA, coming up to Pretoria and thinking that they might be taking the Tshwane Metro away from the ANC.
Well, ambitions are ambitions. But the important point is that there are a number of new players that are coming into that space. So we'll have to wait and see.
Schooling in Viwani is in limbo following the students missing their interim midterm exams. What impact will this have on the learners in that area?
Well, I think it will have an impact in the entire region. We cannot isolate the schools who have now become political space in relation to the types of actions or demonstrations we have seen. So in the forefront, of course, are the learners who are going to be impacted on. And I think we need to do away with the myth that you can catch up in relation to time once school is missed. So it's going to have quite a marked impact on the learners in the area.
National Assembly has passed the expropriation bill. Now, the question that I want to pose, is this perhaps a good thing for those who are opposing the willing buyer, willing seller concept?
The willing buyer, willing seller concept has been contested, I think, from the word go. There was a lot of issues in relation to whether it would actually bring about the reform. And I think consensus is that it has not brought about that reform. Hence, even that space is now highly politicized. So there'll be increasing contestation in terms of the impact of the bill, what the bill means to the actual social configuration of South Africa moving forward.
Now, another issue is the NPA dismissed reports that they plan to arrest the finance minister. Some of the newspapers over the weekend speak a different tune. Your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are this is a grey area, an increasingly grey area. The one moment we have what appears to be a clarification of the issue, the next moment we have new charges. So the question is, it's a space that we need to watch. It's, in my view, an over-politicized space which can have serious economic consequences for the country.
And then lastly, what can we read into the court that has been set for the leave to appeal the High Court ruling that corruption charges against President Jacob Zuma should be reinstated? And, of course, there's a follow-up of that Shapiro cartoon.
Yeah, well, first of all, it was found that it was an irrational act on the head of the public prosecutions previously. So appealing is to try and do away with the fact that what goes on in the NPA is irrational. So the issue is what further would be the findings is an open space.
Yes. Now, talking about that cartoon shows the NPA head, Sean Abrams, as a monkey playing a wind-up organ on a leash with President Jacob Zuma. So where do we draw the line in terms of artistic freedom and freedom of expression?
Well, one would expect cartoonists to have a sensitive pulse. They are a barometer of what our country permits in terms of freedom of expression. It appears this time that the space has narrowed, but again, we are seeing a greater and greater politicization in terms of images, and the cartoonists now appear to be in the forefront.
Doctor, anything else that stood out for you during the course of the week that we've missed? It was a massive week in terms of news.
I think the horror of Hammanskraal is something that obviously has affected us all. Why do these things happen in winter? You know, why are people's housing, whatever you want to call them, shanty towns, why does this type of horror take place during winter time? And we are talking about families here.
And there's also unhappiness and discontent in Ennerdale.
Absolutely. I mean, and that is set to grow because, as you know, in some of these areas, there's been absolutely no housing development since the fall of the Nationalist Party, the apartheid Nationalist Party.
Doctor, as usual, thank you so much for your time and joining us here in studio. That was social commentator Dr. Leonard Martin taking us through a number of issues on our weekly slot, looking at the major stories that unfolded during the week that passed and how that impacts on you and me, as well as us as a society. That's where we got to leave it. That's all we have for you today here on Newsroom. From myself, Elvis Preston, and the team that's not here now, we'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning, same time, same place. In fact, Kendall is moving over. And of course, there was a question that we posed to our viewers today, Kendall. We wanted to check with them, should schooling be allowed for everyone? Doesn't matter where you stay. If you're staying in Diepkloof, you can go to school in Sandton. Well, I want to see if there's any of those comments that came through. And in fact, there was one that you read earlier. Let's just see if we can get some of those comments up on the screen there, if there is. It seems like, there we go. There's one there from Achirash, Kendall.
Major Shishoka, she reckons, I think transformation should always take place in all schools and no demarcation. Hashtag freedom.
Well, there you go from Achira Shishoka. Well, these are some of your comments. You can keep coming. We'll read them even tomorrow when we do a lineup of all the comments.
Absolutely, but Elvis, before we let everybody go, the Comrades Marathon, fantastic stuff. We've got some highlights just to bring it back to everyone's memory exactly what happened. David Khatebe right now breaking the record by 2 minutes of the Russian Snetsev, and he's doing extremely well. He's really happy. You all heard his up sound saying that he's happy that we took it.
And I mean, a couple of push-ups after the race, after 94 kilometers. I will be fainting by that time, I promise.
Yeah, and we're looking now at Karen Wostman. She was the winner from last year. She got almost taken out by a race official, twice almost. Very hectic. She was cramping hectically, and 15 Ks from the end. However, she managed to actually get through and come through second. Crossing her is her training partner, doing extremely well to take that one. Two South Africans winning Comrades.
Some dramatic pictures there. Thank you, Kendall. That actually brings an end to today's show. From myself, Elvis Preston.
And me, Kendall Makhamat.
See you tomorrow, same time, same place. Ciao for now. Arrivederci.
Ligamos.